You ruined Christmas, my stepmother screamed, her palm connecting with my cheek hard enough to rattle the ornaments. The room went dead silent. I stood frozen near the tree, a silver fork still in my hand, tasting copper. She thought her violence would break me, but she had no idea that behind the velvet sofa lay a briefcase containing every financial lie she had ever told. The clock was just seconds away from 7. My name is Angela Jacobs, and I am 29 years old. I was standing in the center of the most beautifully decorated room in Cleveland, Ohio, holding a silver fork loaded with a bite of red velvet cake that I would never get to eat. The air smelled of fresh pine, expensive cinnamon candles, and the heavy, cloying scent of my stepmother's Chanel perfume. It was the smell of money, of tradition, and of a family that had spent the last decade quietly rotting from the inside out. The silence that filled the room was not peaceful. It was the kind of vacuum that happens right after a bomb goes off, that split second before the debris starts to rain down. You ruined Christmas. The scream tore through the silence, shrill and jagged. It came from Lydia. My stepmother stood 5 feet away from me, her chest heaving beneath a red silk dress that cost more than my car. The crystal wine glass in her right hand was shaking so violently that drops of pale Chardonnay were splashing onto the pristine white Persian rug my grandmother had bought in Iran 40 years ago. But I wasn't looking at the rug. I was looking at Lydia's left hand, which was still raised, palm open, trembling with the aftershocks of the violence she had just inflicted. My cheek burned. It was a sharp, stinging heat that radiated from my cheekbone all the way down to my jaw. The sound of the slap still echoed in the high vaulted ceilings of the living room, bouncing off the mahogany paneling and the 12-foot Christmas tree. It was a wet, meaty sound. I had grown accustomed to Lydia's verbal assaults over the years, the snide comments about my weight, the whispers about my career failures, the gaslighting about my mental health. I was used to the emotional bruises that no one could see, but this was different. This was physical, and more importantly, this was public. We were not alone. The room was packed with 25 of our closest relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins from out of state, and longtime family friends were all frozen in various states of shock. Uncle Bob had a shrimp cocktail halfway to his mouth. Aunt Sarah was clutching her pearl necklace as if strangling it. My father, Martin, stood near the fireplace, his face draining of color, looking like a man who wished he could simply dissolve into the brickwork. I did not raise my hand to touch my face. I did not cry out. I did not lunge at her. I simply stood there, lowering the fork slowly to the china plate in my hand. The ceramic made a soft clink that sounded impossibly loud in the dead quiet. Inside, my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my exterior was ice. I could feel the tears pricking the corners of my eyes, a natural physiological response to pain, but I refused to let them fall. I locked my knees to keep from shaking. Slowly, casually, I shifted my weight, stepping back just enough so that my hip brushed against the back of the velvet armchair behind me. No one looked down. No one saw my hand drift behind the chair, fingers brushing against the cold, smooth leather of a slim black briefcase I had tucked there 20 minutes ago. It was hidden in the shadows, invisible to everyone but me. Touching it gave me a surge of adrenaline. That briefcase was my shield. It was my sword. It contained every receipt, every email, every bank statement, and every lie Lydia had told for the last 5 years. "How could you?" Lydia shrieked again, breaking the paralysis of the room. She was launching into her performance now, and she was a master of the stage. She crumbled, literally sagging as if the weight of my alleged betrayal was too heavy for her delicate frame to bear. "We gave you everything, Angela, everything. And this is how you repay us? By humiliating us? By destroying the one night your grandmother wanted to be perfect?" She brought her hands to her face, sobbing loudly. It was a theatrical, heaving sob that demanded comfort. The room shifted. I could feel the tide turning, and it was turning against me. The whispers started low, like the buzzing of angry wasps. "I knew it," I heard Cousin Rachel whisper to her husband. Lydia told me Angela has been unstable since she came back from the city. Ungrateful, someone else muttered from near the buffet table. Lydia paid off her debts, and look at how she treats her. She's just like her mother was, an older aunt hissed, always creating drama where there shouldn't be any. Their eyes were heavy with judgment. They looked at my simple gray dress, my lack of jewelry, my tired eyes, and they saw exactly what Lydia wanted them to see. The failure, the leech, the daughter who had returned home broken and was now biting the hand that fed her. They didn't see a victim of assault. They saw a villain who had pushed a saintly mother figure to her breaking point. My father took a hesitant step forward, his hands raised in a pathetic, placating gesture. Lydia, honey, calm down. Angela, just apologize. Please, let's just get through dinner. Apologize. The word tasted like bile in my throat. He wanted me to apologize for being slapped. It was the perfect summary of my entire life in this house. I won't apologize, I said. My voice was quiet, but it was steady. Lydia's head snapped up from her hands. Her eyes were dry. There were no tears, only a cold, reptilian fury that she masked instantly with a look of devastation. You see, she wailed, turning to the relatives. You see what I deal with? I have tried so hard to love her. I have paid her bills. I have covered for her mistakes. I welcomed her back into this house when she had nowhere else to go, and she stands there and mocks me. She took a step toward me, aggressive and threatening, using her physical presence to try and cow me into submission. You are a selfish, spoiled little brat. Angela, you don't care about anyone but yourself. You don't care that your grandmother is sitting right there, watching you destroy her holiday. I looked past Lydia's heaving shoulder to the wingback chair in the corner near the window. Grandma Eleanor sat there like a queen on a throne. She was 84 years old, frail, wrapped in a knitted shawl, her white hair perfectly coiffed. Her hands, spotted with age and trembling slightly from Parkinson's, rested on the armrests of her chair. But her eyes were sharp as diamond cutters. She wasn't looking at Lydia. She was looking at me. For years, I had thought Grandma was too old to understand, or too tired to fight. I thought she had been fooled by Lydia just like everyone else. But as our eyes locked across the room, I saw something in her gaze that I had missed before. It wasn't pity, it was calculation. Enough, Eleanor said. She didn't shout. She didn't have to. Her voice was thin, raspy with age, but it carried an authority that instantly silenced the room. Even Lydia paused, her mouth half open. Mother Jacobs, Lydia started, her voice dropping to a syrupy whine. I am so sorry you have to see this. I tried to keep her under control. I really did. But I said enough. Lydia, Eleanor repeated. She lifted one trembling finger. Everyone, stay where you are. No one leaves this room. Not you, Martin, and certainly not you, Angela. I think Angela should leave, Aunt Marge piped up from the back, clutching her purse. She's clearly upset and she's ruining the mood. Maybe she should go to her room until she can behave. Yes, Lydia seized on the suggestion, her eyes lighting up. Go to your room. Angela, we will discuss your punishment later. Get out of my sight before I call the police and have you removed for harassment. The audacity was breathtaking. She hits me and threatens to call the police on me. A year ago, I would have run. A year ago, I would have fled up the stairs, locked my door, and cried into my pillow while Lydia spun her web of lies downstairs, cementing my reputation as the unstable daughter. But I wasn't that person anymore. The briefcase behind the chair felt heavy in my mind, anchoring me to the floor. I looked at Lydia. I really looked at her. I saw the fear behind the rage. She was desperate. She was loud because she was terrified. She knew that the house of cards she had built on my father's passivity and my grandmother's supposed senility was fragile. I'm not going to my room, I said. My voice was clearer this time, projecting to the back of the room so every single cousin and aunt could hear me. And I am not leaving this house. Lydia laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. You have no rights here. This is my house. I run this family. And I say you get out." "It is not your house, Lydia," I said. "Not yet." Lydia's face went purple. She stepped closer, invading my personal space, her perfume suffocating me. "You ungrateful little wretch! After I paid off your credit card debt? After I stopped the bank from suing you? You dare speak to me about rights?" The crowd murmured again, nodding. There it was. The lie she had planted months ago. The lie that I was in financial ruin and she was my savior. I felt a cold calm settle over me. It was the same dissociation I used to feel in the emergency room when a trauma case came in. The ability to shut down the emotional center of the brain and operate purely on logic and procedure. "If you want to talk about money, Lydia," I said, keeping my eyes locked on hers, "we can talk about money. We can talk about the $20,000 in credit card debt. We can talk about the second mortgage. We can talk about the loans taken out in my name." Lydia's eyes widened. For a split second, the mask slipped, and I saw pure terror. She glanced quickly at my father, then back at me. "You are delusional," she hissed, though her voice wavered. "She's having an episode. Martin, do something. She is making things up." "I am not making anything up," I said. I reached back and grabbed the handle of the briefcase. I didn't pull it out yet. I just held it, letting the leather bite into my palm. "If you want everyone here to know the truth, that is fine by me. We can do this right now, in front of the turkey and the tree." "Shut up," Lydia shrieked, looking wildly at the guests. "Don't listen to her. She is sick." "But," I continued, raising my voice just enough to cut through her panic, "I think it would be better if we let Grandma's lawyer explain it. He is very punctual, and he should be ringing the doorbell in exactly 2 minutes." The word lawyer hit the room like a physical blow. The whispering stopped instantly. My father looked up from the floor, confusion wrinkling his brow. "Lawyer?" he mumbled. "What lawyer? Why would we need a lawyer on Christmas?" Lydia went pale. Her makeup suddenly looked too stark against her skin, like paint on a corpse. She turned to look at the large grandfather clock standing in the corner of the room. The brass pendulum swung back and forth, slicing through the tension. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It was 2 minutes to 7. For years, the Jacobs family tradition was simple. Grandma read a generic holiday greeting and gave out envelopes of cash at 7 o'clock. There had never been a lawyer, not on Christmas. Lydia turned slowly to look at Grandma Eleanor. My grandmother hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still, her hands clasped in her lap, watching Lydia with an expression that was almost bored. "Mother?" Lydia whispered, her voice trembling for real this time. "What is she talking about? Why is there a lawyer coming?" I pulled the briefcase out from behind the sofa. The sound of the heavy leather hitting the floor was a dull thud that signaled the end of the life I had known, and the beginning of the war I was about to win. "Because," I said, answering for my grandmother, "Grandma Eleanor thinks it is time we updated the will, and this time she wanted witnesses." I looked at the clock. 1 minute to 7. The pendulum swung. The game was over. And Lydia didn't even know she had already lost. To understand the explosion that happened at 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, you have to understand the slow, suffocating silence that preceded it. You have to go back exactly 1 year to the day I drove my beat-up sedan back into Cleveland, Ohio, thinking I was returning to a sanctuary. I was 28 years old, and I was broken. For 5 years, I had worked as an emergency logistics coordinator for a hospital system in Chicago. My job was high-stakes chaos. I managed bed shortages during flu seasons, coordinated triage protocols during mass casualty drills, and spent 12 hours a day screaming into telephones to get insurance approvals for dying patients. I was good at it. I was efficient. I was cold under pressure, and I was utterly exhausted. When the burnout finally hit, it did not look like a dramatic collapse. It looked like me sitting in my car in the hospital parking garage for 3 hours, unable to turn the key in the ignition because my hands would not stop shaking. I quit the next day. I needed to breathe. I needed to sleep for a month. I needed, or so I thought, my family. When I pulled into the driveway of the sprawling Victorian house where my father and stepmother lived with my grandmother, It looked like a picture from a storybook. Snow dusted the manicured hedges. The porch light was a warm, inviting yellow. I thought I was coming home to heal. I did not know I was walking into a different kind of emergency room, one where the bleeding was invisible and the triage never ended. My father, Martin, met me at the door. He hugged me, and he smelled like pipe tobacco and old paper, a comforting, familiar scent. But as he pulled away, I saw the look in his eyes that I had learned to ignore as a child. It was a look of perpetual apology. Martin Jacobs was a man who had decided 30 years ago that the path of least resistance was the only road worth traveling. He loved me, I knew that, but he loved his peace of mind more, and his peace of mind was entirely dependent on keeping Lydia happy. Lydia descended the stairs a moment later. She did not hug me. She placed her hands on my shoulders, held me at arm's length, and inspected me like a piece of furniture she had ordered online that arrived slightly damaged. "You look tired, Angela," she said, her voice smooth and concerned. "But don't worry, we will get you sorted out. You just rest. Leave everything to me." Leave everything to me. It became the mantra of my existence. The trap was not sprung all at once. It was laid out slowly, brick by brick, constructed of guilt and twisted generosity. The first brick was laid at the dinner table 3 nights after I arrived. I had mentioned that I needed to start looking for a temporary apartment and sorting out my mail forwarding. I still had savings, and I wanted to be independent while I figured out my next career move. Lydia waved her hand dismissively, cutting through a piece of steak. "Nonsense," she said. "You are not going anywhere. This house is enormous, and you need to save your money. Besides, we have already handled so much for you." I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean, handled?" Lydia exchanged a look with my father. It was a look that said, "See how forgetful she is?" "Over the years, darling," Lydia said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "All those times you were too busy saving lives in Chicago, the mail that came here, the insurance notices, the little tax discrepancies, I just took care of them. I didn't want to stress you out when you were working such long hours." I frowned. I was meticulous with my finances. "I don't remember any tax discrepancies." "Oh, they were small things," she said quickly. "A few $100s here, a filing fee there. It adds up. Of course, your father and I have covered quite a bit to keep your credit score pristine, but we don't mind. That is what family does." I looked at my father. He was staring intensely at his mashed potatoes. "Right, Dad?" I asked. "Lydia is very good with the paperwork, Ange," he mumbled. "She just wanted to help." A heavy cold stone settled in my stomach. I had no proof she was lying. I had been overwhelmed in Chicago, often working 80-hour weeks. Was it possible I had missed things? Was it possible I had been sloppy? Lydia spoke with such absolute confidence, reciting vague categories of debt, municipal fees, old medical copays sent to the wrong address, that I began to doubt my own memory. "We can go over the numbers later," Lydia said, smiling benevolently. "For now, just eat. You are home. You are safe. You owe us nothing but your recovery." But I did owe them. The debt was established that night, invisible and unquantified. The weeks turned into months. I did not rest. My recovery became a full-time job of servitude. Lydia did not ask me to do chores. She simply created vacuums that only I could fill. She would sigh loudly about the drafty windows in the sunroom until I spent 3 days caulking and repainting them. She would complain that her boutique design business, a chaotic venture involving overpriced throw pillows and estate sale flips, was drowning in spreadsheets. "I am just not good with computers like you are, Angela," she would say, dropping a stack of disorganized receipts on the table while I was trying to read a book. "Could you just organize this for tax season? It will only take you an hour." It took me 4 days. I built her a database. I reconciled her losses. I managed her inventory. When I finished, she didn't say thank you. She said, "Well, at least you are keeping your mind active. It is better than sleeping all day." I became the house manager, the handyman, and the unpaid intern. Every time I tried to set a boundary, Lydia pulled the string attached to my father. One afternoon in March, I found a listing for a studio apartment downtown. It was small, expensive, and smelled faintly of damp carpet, but it was freedom. I came home and told them I was putting down a deposit. Lydia did not get angry. She got sad. She sat on the sofa, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, while my father paced the room. "We thought you were happy here," she sniffled. "After everything we have done, after we paid off those debts for you." "I can pay you back." "Lydia," I said, frustration rising, "tell me the number. I will write you a check right now." "It is not about the money," she cried, looking at my father. "Martin, tell her how much you love having her here. Tell her how lonely you were before she came back." My father stopped pacing. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "It has been nice having you, Anj. The house feels alive again. And with your grandmother getting older." That was the trump card, Grandma Eleanor. "She is 83, Angela," Lydia said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She forgets things. She gets confused. Having you here, it is the only thing keeping her grounded. If you leave, I don't know if her heart can take the abandonment. Do you want to be the reason she declines?" The guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest. I looked at the ceiling, thinking of my grandmother upstairs in her room. I thought of the way her face lit up when I brought her tea in the morning. I thought of the way she held my hand when the tremors in hers got too bad. I tore up the apartment application. "Okay," I said. "I will stay a little longer." Lydia smiled instantly, the tears vanishing as if a switch had been flipped. "Good choice, darling. Now, since you are staying, the garage really needs to be reorganized. The damp is getting to your father's tools." My only escape was Grandma Eleanor. My grandmother was the matriarch of the Jacobs family, but age had stripped her of her physical command. She spent most of her days in the wingback chair in her sitting room, listening to classical music and reading biographies, to Lydia and my father. She was a piece of fragile furniture, something to be dusted and managed. To me, she was the only person who saw me. I spent my evenings in her room. We didn't talk about the tension downstairs. We talked about the world. We talked about my time in the hospital. I told her stories about the chaotic nights in the ER, about the lives I saved and the ones I lost. She listened with an intensity that made me feel like a professional again, not a wayward child. "You have a good mind, Angela," she told me one rainy April afternoon. She was watching me fix the latch on her window, a task Lydia had claimed was too expensive to hire a professional for. "You see how things connect. You see the structure of things." "I am just fixing a latch, Grandma," I said. "You are keeping the house from falling down," she replied. Her blue eyes were clear. "Do not think I don't see who does the work in this house, and do not think I don't see who takes the credit." I paused, screwdriver in hand. It was the first time she had acknowledged the dynamic. "It is fine," I said, the lie tasting like ash. "I am just helping out. I owe them." "You owe no one," Eleanor said sharply. "Remember that debts of the heart are real. Angela, debts of manipulation are counterfeit." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought she was just being protective. I didn't know she was giving me a warning. The turning point, the moment the blindfold began to slip, happened in late October. I had been back for 10 months. I was working part-time remotely for a medical supply company, a job I had found despite Lydia's constant interruptions. I was saving money again, hiding it in a separate account she didn't know about. It was 11 o'clock at night. I had gone downstairs to get a glass of water. The house was dark, but a sliver of light spilled from under the door of the study. My father was asleep upstairs. I could hear his rhythmic snoring. Lydia was the only one awake. I walked softly toward the kitchen, my socks silent on the hardwood floor. As I passed the study, I heard Lydia's voice. She wasn't shouting. She was using her business voice, low, persuasive, and hard. "No, you don't understand," she was saying. "We need to structure it so the transfer happens before the end of the fiscal year. Yes, I know about the tax implications." I froze. I shouldn't have listened, but the tone of her voice triggered an alarm in my brain. It was the same tone people used in the hospital when they were trying to talk a doctor out of a risky procedure, or into one. "The old woman is not going to last another 2 years," Lydia said. My breath caught in my throat. "We have to secure the assets now. If it goes to probate, it becomes a mess. And I repeat, I cannot, have Angela getting her hands on a controlling interest." There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. "Because she is unstable," Lydia hissed. "She had a breakdown in Chicago. She came crawling back here with nothing. If she gets title to the house, she will sell it and blow the money on some manic episode. I am doing this to protect the family legacy. We need to lock it down, put it in a trust with Martin and me as sole trustees. Yes, draft it up." I backed away slowly, my heart pounding so hard I thought she would hear it through the door. I retreated to the kitchen, filled a glass of water with trembling hands, and dumped it down the sink. Unstable. Manic episode. Is that what she told people? Is that what she told the bank? Is that what she told the lawyer she was speaking to? I went back upstairs and sat on the edge of my bed. I looked around the room that had been my childhood sanctuary. Suddenly, the walls felt very thin. Lydia wasn't just using me for free labor. She wasn't just guilt-tripping me to keep her company. She was actively building a legal case against me. She was painting a portrait of a mentally incompetent daughter to ensure that when Grandma died, the estate, the house, the investments, the legacy, would bypass me entirely and land in her manicured hands. And my father? He was likely signing whatever piece of paper she put in front of him, believing her when she said it was for the best. I wanted to storm downstairs and confront her. I wanted to scream, but the years of emergency coordination kicked in. In a crisis, you do not panic. You assess. You gather data. You triage. I didn't have proof. I had overheard one side of a phone conversation. If I accused her now, she would deny it. She would say she was talking about something else. She would say I was hearing things. She would use my accusation as further proof of my instability. She thinks I am crazy, I thought, staring at my reflection in the dark window. She thinks I am weak. I wasn't weak. I was just waking up. The next morning, I came down to breakfast with a smile on my face. I poured Lydia coffee. I asked her about her design business. I offered to paint the guest room. "You are in a good mood," Lydia said, eyeing me suspiciously. "I just slept really well." I lied. "I feel like myself again." I was lying. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like a spy in enemy territory. I didn't know yet how deep the rot went. I didn't know about the loans. I didn't know about the forged signatures. I still clung to the desperate, naive hope that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe family still meant something to these people. But for the first time in a year, I stopped looking at Lydia as a mother figure. I started looking at her as a threat, and I started watching. If November was the month of suspicion, December was the month of suffocation. It started the morning after Halloween, before the pumpkins on the porch had even begun to rot. Lydia summoned us into the dining room for what she called a family summit. She had a clipboard. She had a vision board. She had a gleam in her eye that usually meant someone was about to spend a lot of money, and that someone was never her. "This year," Lydia announced, tapping a manicured fingernail on the mahogany table, "is going to be the grand finale." My father, Martin, looked up from his coffee, looking already tired. "The finale of what, dear?" "Of the era." "Martin," she said, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "Your mother is, well, we have to be realistic. She is 84. She is frail. Who knows if we will have another Christmas with her in this house? We owe it to her to make this the most spectacular, most perfect, most expensive-looking Christmas the Jacobs family has ever seen." She turned her gaze to me. "And that is where you come in, Angela, since you are still finding yourself and not working a demanding corporate job right now. I have decided to appoint you as the project manager." I felt a muscle twitch in my jaw. "Project manager?" "Yes, I will provide the creative vision, of course," Lydia said, waving her hand airily. "But you will handle the execution, the shopping, the decorating, the vendor coordination, the guest list management. It will be good for you. It will give you a sense of purpose." I wanted to say that I had a purpose. I wanted to say that I was working remotely and saving every penny I could to get away from her. But I looked at my father, who gave me that small, pathetic nod that meant, "Please just go along with it." And I looked at the ceiling, thinking of Grandma Eleanor upstairs. If this was indeed her last Christmas, I wanted it to be beautiful. I wanted her to feel loved. "Fine," I said. "I will do it." I didn't know I was agreeing to be the architect of my own public execution. The next 3 weeks were a blur of physical labor that would have exhausted a construction crew. Lydia's vision involved transforming the old Victorian house into something out of a magazine spread. She wanted garlands on every banister, 3 trees, and thousands of lights. But she didn't lift a finger. "Angela, that garland is drooping to the left," she would call out from the sofa, sipping her herbal tea while I balanced precariously on a 12-foot ladder. "Fix it. It looks sloppy. We can't have the cousins thinking we have let the place go." I spent hours in the attic, hauling down dusty boxes of ornaments. I spent days driving from store to store, hunting for the specific shade of champagne gold ribbon she insisted upon. I scrubbed the baseboards until my knuckles bled because she said the energy of the house needed to be pure. And while I worked, Lydia was on the phone. This was the second part of her plan. The part I didn't see until it was too late. She wasn't just supervising, she was broadcasting. She spent hours on calls with aunts, cousins, and family friends, her voice carrying through the open doorways. "Oh, I am just exhausted," I heard her say to Aunt Marge one afternoon. I was on my knees in the hallway, polishing the floorboards. "I am trying so hard to make this nice for Eleanor, but, well, it is difficult with Angela here." I stopped polishing. My heart hammered against my ribs. "She is just so volatile." Lydia lowered her voice, but not enough. I ask her to do one simple thing, and she snaps at me. I think she resents being home. I think she resents that we are successful. It is very hard to manage her moods. "Marge, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own house." She sighed, a long, tragic sound. "But I do it for Martin, and for Eleanor. I just hope she doesn't cause a scene at the party. You know how she gets when she hasn't taken her... Well, never mind." She let the sentence hang there, unfinished, implying medication or a diagnosis that didn't exist. I stood up, gripping the polishing cloth. I wanted to walk into the living room and scream that she was lying, but I knew exactly how that would look. It would look like I was snapping. It would look like I was volatile. It would look exactly the way she had just described me. So I went back to the floor. I rubbed the wood harder, imagining I was erasing her voice. The trap tightened the following week. I was going through my emails, checking my bank notifications, when I saw a flag on my credit card. It was a purchase authorization for $1,200 at a high-end boutique called the Gilded Bow. I froze. I hadn't bought anything from the Gilded Bow. I hadn't bought anything over $50 in months. I clicked on the details. The transaction had happened yesterday at 2 in the afternoon. At 2 in the afternoon yesterday, I had been on the roof, stringing lights in the freezing wind, while Lydia had gone out to run some errands. I felt a cold flush of adrenaline. It wasn't just the money, it was the violation. She had my card information saved in her browser from when I had ordered her vitamins months ago, a favor she had asked for because she couldn't find her wallet. I marched downstairs. Lydia was in the kitchen, arranging a vase of winter berries. My father was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper. "Lydia," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "did you use my Visa card yesterday?" Lydia didn't even look up. She plucked a berry from a stem. "Oh, yes. I picked up those crystal reindeer for the mantelpiece. The ones I showed you. They are stunning. Angela. Hand-blown glass from Italy." "You spent $1,200 on glass deer?" I asked, my voice rising. "On my card? Without asking me?" She turned then, a look of mild annoyance on her face. "Keep your voice down, Angela. Why are you being so dramatic?" "I am not being dramatic. That is my money. That is my savings. I did not agree to buy crystal reindeer." "It is for the house," Lydia said, wiping her hands on a towel. "It is for the family. You are living here rent-free, eating our food, using our heat. I thought you would want to contribute something to make your grandmother's Christmas special, but I guess I was wrong. I guess you are just as selfish as I feared." "It is theft," I said. "You cannot just take people's money because you think they owe you." "Martin," Lydia said, turning to my father, "are you going to let her speak to me like that? After I spent all day hunting for the perfect decoration to honor his mother?" My father sighed. He folded his newspaper slowly. He didn't look at Lydia. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of a weary pleading. "Angela," he said softly, "it is Christmas. Let's not fight over money. Lydia is just trying to make things nice." "Dad, she stole $1,200 from me." We will figure it out later," he mumbled. "Just don't stress her out, okay? You know she gets migraines when she is stressed. Just let it go for now. Just let it go." The words hit me harder than the financial loss. My father wasn't just passive. He was an accomplice. He was watching me be robbed, and he was asking me to apologize to the robber for being loud about it. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't go to my room. I went to Grandma Eleanor's sitting room. She was awake, staring out the window at the gray Ohio sky. The room was quiet, a stark contrast to the aggressive festivity downstairs. "Is everything all right?" she asked, not turning her head. I heard shouting. I sat down on the ottoman near her feet. I was shaking. "Lydia bought $1,200 worth of crystal deer with my credit card," I said. "And Dad told me to let it go." Grandma turned slowly. Her eyes searched my face. "Did you tell her she could?" "No," I said. "I found out when the bank emailed me." "And Martin knows?" "He doesn't care. He just wants peace." Grandma Eleanor nodded. It was a small, almost imperceptible movement. She didn't gasp. She didn't rage. She just absorbed the information, filing it away in the steel trap of her mind. 1,200, she repeated, testing the words. "That is a lot of money for glass." "It is all the money I saved last month," I said, my voice cracking. "You are not selfish, Angela," she said quietly. "Do not let them make you believe that." "They are telling everyone I am," I whispered. "I hear her on the phone. She is telling the whole family I'm difficult. By the time the party starts, everyone is going to hate me." Grandma reached out and placed her hand on mine. Her skin was paper thin, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "Let them talk. Words are wind. Angela, actions are stone. We will see who stands on stone when the time comes." She didn't offer to pay me back. She didn't offer to confront Lydia right then. At the time, I was hurt by that. I thought she was too weak to fight. I didn't realize she was building a case file. She was letting Lydia hang herself, inch by expensive inch. The final phase of Lydia's campaign began a week before Christmas. The relatives started to drop by. Early arrivals, cousins dropping off gifts, aunts coming to help. Lydia staged her plays perfectly. On a Tuesday evening, Aunt Sarah and Uncle Bob came over for dinner. I had spent 4 hours cooking a roast, peeling potatoes, and making a salad from scratch because Lydia said the caterer was too impersonal for a family dinner. We were sitting at the table. The food was good. The conversation was polite. "For the big party on Christmas Eve," Lydia said, smiling at Aunt Sarah, "I was thinking we should do a completely organic, locally sourced menu, maybe a prime rib carving station and a seafood tower." I looked up. "Lydia, we talked about this. The budget is already stretched thin with the decorations. A seafood tower is going to cost another $800. I said it calmly. I said it reasonably. Lydia dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. She looked at me with wide, wounded eyes. "Why do you always have to do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why do you have to bring up money every time I try to do something nice? Can't you just let us have one nice night without counting pennies?" "I am the one managing the spreadsheet. Lydia," I said. "You asked me to manage the budget. I am telling you we are over budget." "See?" Lydia turned to Aunt Sarah, tears springing instantly to her eyes. "This is what I deal with every day. I try to create a beautiful memory for Mother Jacobs, and Angela attacks me. She obsesses over every dime. It is like she doesn't want us to be happy." Aunt Sarah looked at me, her lips pursed. "Angela, dear," she said condescendingly, "it is Christmas. Surely your father can afford a little seafood. There is no need to be so rigid." "I am not being rigid," I said, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "I am being realistic. We have spent $4,000 on decorations alone." "Stop it!" Lydia slammed her hand on the table. "Stop ruining this. You are so negative. You suck the joy out of everything." She pushed back her chair and ran out of the room, sobbing. "Lydia!" my father called, getting up to chase after her. He shot me a look of pure disappointment. "Nice going, Angela." I sat there, stunned. Aunt Sarah shook her head at me. "You know, Angela," she said, lowering her voice, "Lydia has been very patient with you. You really should try to be more grateful. Not everyone has a mother figure who cares this much." I looked at the roast beef I had cooked. I looked at the clean house I had scrubbed. I looked at the woman judging me. "She is not my mother," I said. Aunt Sarah gasped. That is exactly the kind of attitude she was talking about. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing that the trap was complete. Lydia had successfully inoculated the entire family against me. Anything I said to defend myself would be seen as instability. Any objection I raised about money would be seen as ingratitude. If I tried to tell the truth at the party, no one would believe me. I was the villain. She was the martyr. I got out of bed at 3 a.m. I went to my desk. I opened my laptop, but I didn't log into work. I opened a new document. I started to type. December 3rd. Unauthorized credit card charge. 1,100. The Gilded Bow. December 10th. Cash withdrawal from the household account. Purported for charity, actually used for spa day. Receipt found in trash. December 15th. Staged argument at dinner regarding seafood tower. I wrote down everything. I went through my banking app and downloaded the statements. I went into the recycling bin in the kitchen and fished out the receipt for the antique rug she claimed cost $500, but actually cost $2,000. I realized then that I couldn't just survive this Christmas. I had to document it. The next morning, Lydia cornered me in the hallway. Her eyes were puffy, but her smile was sharp. "I hope you are proud of yourself," she hissed, "upsetting your father like that." "I was talking about the budget, Lydia." "I don't care about the budget," she said, leaning in close. "Listen to me. Angela, this party is happening. It is going to be perfect. And if you do one thing, one single thing, to embarrass me or ruin the mood on Christmas Eve, I will make sure the whole family knows exactly why you really left Chicago. I will make up a story so humiliating you will never be able to show your face in this town again." "You don't know why I left Chicago," I said. "It doesn't matter what the truth is," she smiled, chillingly. "It matters what people believe, and they believe me." She patted my cheek, a prelude to the slap that would come later, and walked away, humming a Christmas carol. I stood there, watching her go. She was right. They believed her. But as I touched the pocket of my jeans, where I had hidden the folded-up receipt for the crystal deer, I thought of Grandma Eleanor's words, "Actions are stone." Lydia was building a castle out of lies. I was going to build a wrecking ball out of paper. I went to the closet and pulled out my old work briefcase. I dusted it off. It was time to get to work. Not the work of scrubbing floors or hanging lights, but the work of forensic accounting. If she wanted a villain, I would be a villain, but I would be the kind of villain who brought receipts. The days ticked down, the house filled with more guests, more noise, more performative joy, and in the shadows, quietly, methodically, I filled the briefcase. I waited for the moment when the perfect Christmas would collide with the ugly truth. I just didn't know yet that the collision would leave blood on the floor. The digital chime of an incoming email usually meant nothing: a sale on boots, a newsletter I never read, or a bill I had already paid. But on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas, the notification that slid onto my phone screen at 2 in the afternoon felt different. It was from a bank I did not bank with. First Horizon Trust. The subject line was stark and terrifyingly specific. Urgent. Co-borrower, confirmation required for loan application 4920. I was sitting on the floor of the living room, disentangling a knot of Christmas lights that Lydia had demanded I fix. My fingers stopped. A cold prickle of unease started at the base of my neck. I unlocked my phone and tapped the notification. The email was formal. It stated that my application for a home equity line of credit, secured against the property at 42 Oak Street, was in the final stages of approval, but they needed a digital signature to confirm the co-borrower agreement. 42 Oak Street, my grandmother's house, the house I was sitting in right now. My breath hitched. I stood up, abandoning the lights, and walked quickly into the hallway where the signal was better. This had to be phishing. It had to be a scam. I had never applied for a loan. I certainly hadn't applied to mortgage a house I did not own. I called the number at the bottom of the email, my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. The automated voice made me wait for 4 minutes. 4 minutes where I paced the length of the Oriental runner rug, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. First Horizon Trust. This is Marcus speaking. A bored voice finally answered. Hi, I said, my voice sounding thin and reedy. I received an email about a loan application. Number 4920. I think there has been a mistake. I didn't apply for a loan. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. One moment, ma'am. Let me pull that up. Can you verify your full name and the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave them to him, praying he would say no match found. Okay, Ms. Jacobs, Marcus said, his tone shifting from bored to professional. I see the application here. It is a home equity line of credit for $150,000, secured against the deed of the property in Cleveland. Primary borrower is Lydia Jacobs. Co-borrower is Angela Jacobs. The world tilted on its axis. Lydia, I whispered. Lydia is the primary borrower? But she doesn't own the house. My grandmother owns the house. The application includes a title transfer affidavit pending the loan approval, Marcus said. And we have a notarized power of attorney on file allowing Lydia Jacobs to act on your behalf for financial instruments involving family assets. That is why your digital signature is pending. Actually, looking at this, the power of attorney was used to initiate the co-signing process. We just need the final biometric verification. Power of attorney? I gripped the banister. I never gave her power of attorney. I am looking at the document right now, ma'am, Marcus said. It is dated August 14th of this year. It is signed by you and notarized. August 14th. The date hit me like a physical blow. The memory rushed back, not as a suspicious event, but as a mundane, pathetic moment of weakness. I had been back home for 6 months. I had caught a terrible summer flu, high fever, delirium, days spent sweating through my sheets. Lydia had been an angel. She brought me soup. She changed my pillowcases. And on the 3rd day, when I was weak and groggy, she had come in with a stack of papers. It is just insurance forms. Honey, she had said, her voice soothing and cool. Since you are living here now, we need to add you to the household liability policy and update the emergency medical contacts. Just sign here, and here, and here. I will handle the filing. Go back to sleep. I had signed everything she put in front of me because I was sick, because I trusted her, and because I thought she was taking care of me. I hadn't signed insurance papers. I had signed away my legal autonomy. Cancel it, I said to Marcus, my voice rising to a panic. Cancel the application. That signature was obtained under duress. I did not agree to this. I will put a hold on the file, Ms. Jacobs, Marcus said, sounding alarmed now. But you will need to resolve this with the primary borrower. If the power of attorney is valid, she can technically contest the hold. I hung up. I felt sick. Nausea roiled in my stomach, hot and acidic. Lydia wasn't just stealing from me. She was stealing the house. She was taking out a loan for $150,000 against Grandma's equity. And she was attaching my name to the debt. If she defaulted, and with her failed business ventures, she absolutely would default. The bank would take Grandma's house, and I would be the one on the hook for the debt, legally binding me to her financial ruin for decades. I needed proof. I needed to see exactly how deep this went. I ran upstairs to my room and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking so badly I mistyped my password 3 times. I logged into the shared family cloud drive, something Lydia had set up years ago to share vacation photos, but which she often used to dump scanned documents because she didn't understand how folders worked. I searched for scan. Hundreds of files appeared. I scrolled frantically. Scan August 14 PDF. I opened it. There it was, my signature, shaky and feverish, on a document titled General Durable Power of Attorney, limited to household assets. But it wasn't just that. I kept digging. I searched for Harold, my grandfather's name. I found an email chain from November between Lydia and a man named Bradford Financial. Subject: Asset Consolidation Strategy. I opened the thread and read the words that made my blood run cold. Lydia, Brad, we need to move fast. The old lady is declining. If we wait for the will, it gets split. I need to consolidate the deed into the Jacobs family trust now. If I use Angela as the co-signer, can we bypass the credit check on my personal bankruptcy record from 2018? Brad, technically yes. If the daughter co-signs, her credit score buoys the application, but you need her consent. Lydia, I have the POA. I don't need her consent. I just need the paperwork prepared. We frame it as securing the estate for future generations. Martin will sign anything I put in front of him. Angela is the only variable, but I have her legally binded. I sat back in my chair, gasping for air. She wasn't just greedy, she was predatory. She had bankruptcies I didn't know about. She was using my clean credit history, the one she claimed she had saved, as a life raft for her own sinking financial ship, and she was using Grandma's house as the timber. I heard the garage door open downstairs. My father was home. I slammed the laptop shut and ran downstairs. I found Martin in the garage, hanging up his coat. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped, a man perpetually worn down by the energy of the woman he married. Dad, I said. I didn't wait for a greeting. Did you know Lydia is taking out a second mortgage on Grandma's house? Martin flinched. He didn't look surprised. He looked caught. He turned away, busying himself with a box of nails on the workbench. It is not a mortgage, Angela. It is a restructuring, a line of credit for repairs. Repairs? I asked, my voice trembling. The house doesn't need $150,000 in repairs. And why is my name on it? Why did she use a power of attorney to make me a co-borrower? Martin sighed, a long, rattling sound in his chest. Lydia explained this to me. It is complicated financial stuff. Honey, she says because you are young, your credit helps get a better rate, and the money, well, it is to protect the house, to pay off the inheritance taxes in advance so we don't lose it when your grandmother passes. That is a lie, I screamed. That is not how inheritance taxes work. She is lying to you, Dad. She is taking the money to cover her own debts, and she is pinning the risk on me and Grandma. Lower your voice, Martin hissed, looking nervously at the door to the house. You are going to upset her. Lydia has a plan. She always has a plan. She has taken care of us for 10 years. Angela, why can't you just trust that she knows what she's doing? Because she is stealing from us. She is your mother, Martin shouted back, his face flushing red. It was the first time he had raised his voice in years. She stepped in when your real mother died. She managed everything. And you? You come back here and start tearing apart the paperwork? You should be grateful she is willing to include you in the trust at all." I stared at him. The man I had loved, the man I had pitied, was gone. In his place was a hollow shell, filled entirely with Lydia's poison. He wasn't a victim, he was a volunteer. "I am not included in a trust," I said, my voice dead calm. "I am included in a trap." I turned and walked out of the garage, straight into the kitchen. Lydia was there. She was arranging a tray of gingerbread cookies, looking like the picture of domestic perfection. She heard my footsteps and turned, a smile already plastered on her face. "Oh, there you are," she said. "I need you to run to the store for more cinnamon. I know about the loan," I said. Lydia stopped. The smile didn't vanish. It just froze, losing all warmth. She placed a cookie slowly onto the tray. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her eyes darted to my hands, checking to see if I was holding papers. "The $150,000, I said, stepping closer. "The First Horizon Trust application. The power of attorney you tricked me into signing when I was sick. I know everything. Lydia, I just got off the phone with the bank." Lydia straightened up. She wiped her hands on her apron. The mask of the sweet stepmother dropped completely, replaced by the cold, hard stare of a woman who had been fighting dirty her entire life. "You called the bank?" she asked. Her voice was dangerously quiet. "Yes, and I told them to put a hold on it." "You stupid girl," she spat. "You have no idea what you have done." "I stopped you from robbing my grandmother," I said. "Why? Why put it in my name? Why not just steal it yourself?" "Because I am trying to save this family," Lydia shouted, abandoning all pretense. "Do you think this lifestyle is free? Do you think this house runs on air? Your father makes pennies. I have kept this family afloat for a decade. I have juggled loans. I have moved money. I have done whatever it took to keep the lights on and the appearances up. And now I finally found a way to secure a lump sum that would fix everything, that would let us retire. And you selfish, arrogant little brat, you block it? You are gambling with Grandma's home," I said, "and you are using my credit to do it." "I am securing your future." She stepped into my space, poking a finger hard into my chest. "When the old woman dies, who do you think pays for the funeral? Who pays the estate tax? Me. It is always me. I was doing this so you would have something left over. I was doing you a favor." "A favor?" I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You were enslaving me to your debt." "I can fix this," she hissed, her eyes narrowing. "I can call the bank back. I will tell them you are confused. I will tell them you are off your medication again. I have the power of attorney. Angela, legally, you are mine. If you try to fight me on this, I will destroy you. I will ruin your credit so badly you won't be able to rent a bicycle, let alone an apartment. Do not test me." She turned back to the cookies, her hands trembling with rage. "Now get out of my kitchen, and if you say one word to your grandmother, I will put you on the street tonight." I backed out of the kitchen. My legs felt like lead. I didn't go to the street. I went to the one place in the house where Lydia's influence couldn't reach, or so I hoped. I went to Grandma Eleanor's room. She wasn't in her chair. She was napping in the bedroom. The sitting room was empty, lit only by the winter twilight filtering through the curtains. I collapsed onto the floor near her writing desk. Burying my face in my hands, I felt utterly defeated. Lydia was right. She had the legal documents. She had my father. She had the narrative. I was just a broke, tired daughter with a signature that had been weaponized against her. I sat there for a long time, listening to the silence of the house. Eventually, I pulled myself up. I needed a tissue. I opened the top drawer of Grandma's writing desk, looking for a box of Kleenex. There were no tissues, but there was a large manila envelope sitting right on top of her stationery. It had my name on it, Angela. The handwriting was shaky, unmistakable. It was Grandma's. And underneath my name, written in bold, deliberate ink, "Open when you are ready to see the truth." My heart stopped. I reached out and touched the envelope. It was thick. It felt heavy, like it was full of paper, full of secrets. I realized then that while I had been playing detective for a few weeks, someone else had been watching for much, much longer. I took a deep breath, wiped the tears from my cheeks, and slid my thumb under the flap of the envelope. The paper tore with a sharp, decisive sound. The envelope was heavy, not just with the weight of the paper inside, but with the density of time. I sat on the floor of my grandmother's sitting room, the carpet rough against my legs, and poured the contents out. It was not a chaotic spill. It was a curated collection. The first thing I picked up was a photocopy of a credit card application from 6 years ago. I stared at it, my brain struggling to process the visual information. It was a darker, grainier copy, but the details were sharp enough. It was an application for a Platinum Rewards card. The primary applicant was Lydia Jacobs. The authorized user was Angela Jacobs. I looked at the date. I was 23 then. I was living in a studio apartment in Chicago, eating ramen noodles and working double shifts. I remembered that year. I remembered Lydia calling me, her voice sweet and concerned, asking for my social security number because she wanted to list me as a beneficiary on a small life insurance policy she was taking out. I had given it to her. I had thanked her. I looked at the application again. There was no insurance policy. She had used my social security number to open a credit line because her own credit was shot. I turned the page. Behind the application was a stack of bank transfer receipts. These I recognized. These were the transfers I had made. November, 4 years ago, $2,000. Memo, emergency roof repair. I remembered that call. Lydia was crying. She said the roof was leaking into the attic, destroying the insulation, and my father didn't have the cash on hand until his pension check cleared. I had drained my savings account to send that money. Stapled to the receipt was a second piece of paper, a bank statement from Lydia's personal checking account for the same month. I traced the line with my finger. Deposit, $2,000. Withdrawal, $1,800. Nordstrom, withdrawal, $200. Spa Serenity. There was no roofer. There was never a roofer. I felt a physical blow to my chest, a hollow thud that knocked the wind out of me. I flipped through the rest, the medical bills for my father that were actually payments for her car, the tax trouble that was actually a down payment on a timeshare she eventually let lapse. For 10 years, I had been her personal piggy bank, and she had framed every withdrawal as a family crisis. But the most devastating part of the file was not the bank records. It was the small, yellow squares of paper stuck to the documents. They were notes, written in blue ink, in a hand that started out firm years ago and grew shakier with time. My grandmother's handwriting. June 12th, 5 years ago. Lydia asked for money again today. She told Angela it was for Martin's dental work. Martin has full dental coverage. I tried to take the phone, but Lydia walked out of the room. October 4th, 3 years ago. Found a letter from the collection agency and Angela's name in the trash. Lydia hid it. When I asked Martin, he looked at his shoes and said Lydia was handling it. Martin is silent, always silent. August 14th. This year. Angela signed the papers. She was sick with fever. Lydia told me she was signing a health proxy. I saw the power of attorney header. I tried to shout, but my throat was too dry. Lydia closed the door on me. I read that last note 3 times. Martin is silent, always silent. The tears that finally fell were not hot or angry. They were cold. They were the tears of a child realizing that the monsters weren't under the bed. They were standing in the kitchen, and her father was holding the door open for them. I didn't hear the door open. I didn't hear her footsteps. I only realized I wasn't alone when the floorboard creaked near the armchair. I looked up. Grandma Eleanor was standing there. She was leaning heavily on her cane, her silver hair catching the last of the daylight. She looked older than she had this morning. The weight of the secrets she had been keeping was etched into every line of her face. She didn't look at the papers scattered on the floor. She looked at me. "I was waiting," she said. Her voice was soft, like dry leaves scraping together. I was waiting for the day you saw it yourself. I held up the note about the roof repair. My hand was trembling. You knew? I whispered. You knew she was stealing from me? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me send the money? Grandma moved slowly to her chair and lowered herself into it with a small grunt of pain. She adjusted her shawl before answering. I tried, Angela, she said. Do you remember the Christmas 4 years ago? When I told you not to send checks to the joint account? When I told you to keep your money in Chicago? I remembered Lydia rolling her eyes behind Grandma's back, twirling her finger by her temple to indicate that the old woman was losing her mind. I remember, I said. Lydia told me you were getting paranoid. She said you didn't trust modern banking. Lydia has spent 10 years building a wall between your ears and my mouth, Eleanor said. Every time I spoke, she translated it into madness. If I told you she was stealing, she would have told you I was confusing her with the maid. If I told you she was lying, she would have said I was forgetting reality. And you? She looked at me with a sad, gentle smile. You loved her. You wanted a mother so badly. Angela, you wanted to believe her. I dropped the paper. She was right. I had been complicit in my own deception because I was desperate for the family to work. And Dad? I asked. The word tasted like ash. The notes say he knew. Grandma sighed, a long, deep exhale that seemed to rattle in her chest. Your father is a good man who is afraid of conflict more than he is afraid of sin. Lydia gives him peace. Angela, it is a false peace, bought with your money and my patience. But it is peace. He knows. He has known for a long time that she spends what she does not have. But as long as she handled the ugly details, he could pretend he was innocent. He let her rob me, I said. He stood there today, in the garage, and told me to trust her. He is drowning, Grandma said. And she is the only one with a life vest, even if she is the one who poked the hole in the boat. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. The cloudiness of age seemed to vanish, replaced by the sharp, terrifying intelligence I remembered from my childhood. But this isn't just about credit cards. Angela, it is about the house. I know, I said. The loan, $150,000. It is not just a loan, Eleanor said. For 3 years, Lydia has been trying to get me to sign a quitclaim deed. She comes in here at night. When the house is quiet, she sits by my bed. She cries. She holds my hand. Grandma mimicked Lydia's tone, a chillingly accurate impression of the syrupy sweetness. Oh, Mother Jacobs, I am so worried about what happens when you are gone. The probate courts are so cruel. If you just add my name to the deed now, I can promise you that Angela will always have a home. I can promise you that Martin will be safe. Don't you trust me? Don't you want to protect them? I felt a shiver run down my spine. She used me as leverage, I said. Always, Grandma said. She told me you were unstable. She told me you couldn't handle the responsibility of an inheritance. She said if the house went to you, you would sell it and squander the money on, well, she has many creative theories about your life. Drugs, gambling, cults. I was working in a hospital, I cried. I know, Grandma said soothingly. I know who you are. But she needed me to believe you were broken so she could be the savior. She wanted me to sign the house over to her to protect it from you. Did you? I asked, my heart stopping. No, Grandma said firmly. I may be old, and my hands may shake, but my mind is still my own. I never signed, and that is why she is desperate. She knows I am dying, Angela. The statement hung in the air. I wanted to protest, to say no, you're fine. But I couldn't lie to her, not now. My heart is failing, she said matter-of-factly. The doctor gives me 6 months, maybe less. Lydia knows this. She smells the end. That is why she forged the power of attorney. She is trying to bypass me. She is trying to strip the equity out of this house before I die, so that when the will is read, there is nothing left but a shell and a debt. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was cold. I cannot play the long game anymore. Angela, I am out of time. I have protected the deed so far. But with that power of attorney, she has a weapon I did not anticipate. She has weaponized you against yourself. I put a hold on the loan, I said. But she said she would destroy me if I didn't lift it. She will, Grandma said. If we stop here, she will destroy you. She will spin a story to the family that you are mentally ill. She will convince your father to commit you, or to cut you off completely. She will drag your name through the mud until you have no credibility left. She squeezed my hand. So we have a choice. We can let her win. You can go back to Chicago. Leave the house to her. Let her drain it dry, and save yourself the pain of the fight. I will die, and she will take everything, but you will be free of her venom. She paused. Or, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, we can burn it down. I looked at the woman who had taught me how to read, how to tie my shoes, how to be decent. I looked at the pile of evidence on the floor. I thought of my father in the garage, turning his back on me. I thought of Lydia's fake smile and the way she had stolen years of my labor and called it love. Something inside me snapped, but it wasn't a snap that broke things. It was a snap that locked things into place. I don't want to go back to Chicago, I said. Not like this, not running away. It will be ugly, Grandma warned. If we do what I have planned, you will lose them. Martin will never forgive you for humiliating her. The aunts and uncles will call you cruel. You will be the villain of the Jacobs family history. I looked at the credit card application with my social security number on it. I looked at the lies. I have already lost them, I said. I lost my father the day he chose his comfort over my safety. I lost the family the day they decided to believe her lies without asking me a single question. I took a deep breath. I want to keep myself, I said. I want my name back. I want my credit back. And I want this house to be what you intended it to be. A home, not a bank account for her vanity, even if I have to lose every other person in this phone book. Grandma Eleanor stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, the corner of her mouth twitched upward. It was a warrior's smile. Good, she said. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a folded document. It wasn't old and yellowed like the others. It was crisp, white, and fresh. I called Mr. Rowe, she said. He is the new attorney. Lydia thinks old Mr. Henderson is still handling my affairs, but I fired him 2 months ago when I found out he was playing golf with Lydia's financial advisor. She handed me the document. This is the draft of the new last will and testament of Eleanor Jacobs, she said. I want you to read the clause on page 4, the one regarding the Christmas disbursement. I opened the document. My eyes scanned the legal jargon until I found the section she pointed to. Article 5, the Christmas condition. I read it. My eyes widened. You can't do this, I whispered. This is a trap. It is not a trap, Grandma said, her eyes twinkling with a cold, hard light. It is a test, and on Christmas Eve, we are going to see who passes. She will scream, I said. She will go nuclear. Let her, Grandma said. You have the evidence in that folder. I have the will in this hand, and we have cameras. Cameras? I asked. I had them installed last week, she said calmly. While Lydia was at her yoga retreat, they are small, motion activated. There is one in the study, one in the living room, and one right here. She pointed to the bookshelf. I saw a tiny black lens hidden between 2 volumes of an encyclopedia. She thinks she is the director of this show, Grandma said, leaning back in her chair. She thinks she writes the script, but she forgets whose stage she is standing on. She looked at the clock. Put the papers back in the envelope. Angela, hide them. Go downstairs. Apologize to your father. Tell Lydia you were confused and you will call the bank back after Christmas. Lull them to sleep. You want me to lie? I want you to buy us 48 hours, Grandma said. Christmas Eve is the curtain call. Until then, you are the dutiful, slightly unstable daughter. Let them think they have won. It makes the fall so much more satisfying. I gathered the papers. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt cold, sharp, and ready. Okay, I said. And Angela? Grandma said as I reached the door. I turned back. Merry Christmas, she said. The 48 hours leading up to Christmas Eve were not spent baking cookies or wrapping gifts. They were spent in a state of cold, calculated operational preparation that felt less like holiday planning and more like staging a coup. My grandmother, Eleanor, had always possessed a mind for strategy. I had forgotten that in her frailty, but as we sat in her dimly lit sitting room on the morning of December 23rd, the fog of age seemed to evaporate completely. She laid out the plan with the precision of a general reviewing a battlefield map. You need to understand the theater of this, Angela, she said, tapping a finger on the armrest of her chair. Every Christmas for the last 5 years, I have gathered the family at 7 o'clock to read an addendum to the will. It used to be a way to remind them of their responsibilities, but lately, Lydia treats it like a coronation. I nodded. I remembered the previous years. Lydia would sit there, clutching a glass of wine, smiling benevolently as the old family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, read vague promises about future considerations. Lydia loves the audience, Grandma continued. She needs the family to see her being rewarded. She needs them to see her as the chosen successor. That is why she insists on the big party. She thinks this year, with my health failing, the reading will be the final handover of the deed. She thinks Mr. Henderson is coming, I said. She does, Grandma smiled, a dry, thin expression. She does not know that Mr. Henderson has been relieved of his duties. He was too fond of Lydia's scotch and too loose with my private information. Tomorrow night, the doorbell will ring, and Mr. Daniel Rowe will be standing there. Who is Daniel Rowe? He is a shark, Grandma said with satisfaction. He is not from our church. He is not a family friend. He is a high-asset litigation attorney from downtown who specializes in elder abuse and fraud. He does not care about Lydia's tears. He charges $500 an hour, and he is worth every penny. She handed me a leather binder. Read the new draft. I opened it. The legal language was dense, but the intent was razor-sharp. The new will did not simply disinherit Lydia. That would be too easy to contest. She would claim undue influence or dementia. Instead, the will created a specialized trust, the Angela Jacobs Protective Trust. All assets, including the house, the investment portfolio, and the liquid cash, were to be transferred into this trust immediately upon execution. I was named the sole trustee, but there was a clause, written in bold, that made my breath catch. Clause 4B. The condition of protection. The trustee, Angela Jacobs, is granted full authority to manage these assets, provided she presents documented evidence that the primary beneficiaries previously named, Lydia Jacobs, Martin Jacobs, have engaged in financial exploitation, forgery, or predatory lending practices against the estate or the trustee. Upon presentation of such evidence to the executing attorney, all prior claims by said beneficiaries are null and void. It is a trap, I whispered, looking up at her. You are not just cutting them out. You are forcing me to prove they deserve it. Exactly, Eleanor said. If I just cut them out, they sue you for years. They say I was crazy. But if the will itself demands evidence of their theft as a condition of the trust, then the burden of proof shifts. You are not stealing their inheritance, Angela. You are fulfilling the legal requirements of the document to protect the estate. It makes the evidence the key. And if I can't prove it? Then they get everything, Grandma said simply. But we know you can prove it, because we have eyes. She picked up her iPad from the side table and opened an app I had never seen before. She tapped the screen and handed it to me. The screen showed a grainy but clear black and white feed. It was the study downstairs. I could see my father sitting at the desk, his head in his hands. Lydia was standing over him, her hand on his shoulder. It looked like a comforting gesture until you looked closer at her grip. She was digging her fingers into his trapezius muscle. I tapped the volume icon. The audio was tinny, but audible. Just sign it, Martin, Lydia's voice came through the speaker. It is just a formality for the insurance. Why do you always have to make me beg? Do you want Angela to be homeless when I'm gone? I don't understand this clause, Martin mumbled, reaching for his reading glasses. It says transfer of title. That doesn't sound like insurance. Lydia snatched the glasses away from him. You are not a lawyer. Martin, stop pretending you understand the jargon. I had Bradford look at it. He said it is standard. Now sign it, or I swear to God, I am leaving. I am done taking care of this ungrateful family. Martin slumped. He looked defeated. He picked up the pen and signed. I watched, sick to my stomach, as Lydia smiled, kissed the top of his head, and picked up the paper. Good boy, she said. Grandma took the iPad back. That was yesterday, she said. She is trying to get him to sign away his marital rights to the property so she can leverage it fully. We have 3 more clips like that. One of her on the phone with the bank impersonating you, one of her searching my desk for the deed. This is admissible? I asked. In a civil hearing regarding the validity of a will? Absolutely, Grandma said. Daniel Rowe has already reviewed the footage. He says it is the smoking gun. So what happens tomorrow? I asked. We just play the movies? We ambush them, Grandma said. Lydia expects a party. She expects a toast. She expects to win. Instead, at 7 o'clock, Mr. Rowe will enter. He will announce that the will has been updated. He will read the clause about financial exploitation, and then he will ask you, in front of everyone, if you have any evidence to present. My stomach flipped. In front of everyone? Aunt Sarah? The cousins? Yes, Grandma said hard. The truth must be public. Angela, if we do this in private, Lydia will spin it. She will tell the family you manipulated me. She will lie. But if the lawyer lays out the bank statements and the video on the dining room table while they are eating her Christmas ham, she cannot spin that. She will be naked in her greed. They will hate me, I said, the old fear rising up. They will say I humiliated my parents on Christmas. Grandma leaned forward. Her eyes were fierce. Angela, listen to me. You have a choice. You can be the polite daughter who protects the family reputation, and in 6 months, you will be homeless, bankrupt, and I will be dead with my legacy sold to pay Lydia's credit card bills. Or you can be the bad guy for one night. You can be the villain in their story so you can be the hero in yours. She paused. Either you accept being seen as a traitor for a few years, or you let them drain you dry for the rest of your life. Choose. I looked at the iPad. I looked at the image of my father, broken and small. I looked at Lydia's hand on his shoulder. I choose me, I said. Good, Grandma said. Then get your briefcase. We have work to do. The next 6 hours were a blur of forensic organization. I retreated to my room and locked the door. I pulled the briefcase out from under the bed. It became my operations center. I didn't just throw papers in there. I organized them like a prosecutor preparing for a murder trial. Tab 1. Identity theft. I printed the credit card applications side by side with my actual employment records from that year. Proving I was in Chicago while the card was opened in Cleveland, I highlighted the signature mismatch. Tab 2. Embezzlement. I downloaded 5 years of bank statements from the joint account I had sent money to. I cross-referenced every deposit I made with Lydia's withdrawals. Deposit, $2,000 for roof repair. Withdrawal, found $850 to Saks Fifth Avenue. I taped the receipts to the pages. The visual evidence was damning. It wasn't just numbers. It was a map of betrayal. Tab 3. The loan fraud. I printed the email from First Horizon Trust. I printed the power of attorney document Lydia had tricked me into signing. I added a notarized affidavit I had typed up myself, stating clearly that I had never consented to the loan. Tab 4. The digital evidence. I took the USB drive Grandma had given me, which contained the video files from the hidden cameras. I secured it in the front pocket of the briefcase. When I was done, the briefcase felt heavy. It weighed 10 pounds, but it carried the weight of a decade of silence. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, Grandma and I left the house. We told Lydia we were going to get our hair done for the party. It was a lie she accepted easily because it fit her narrative of superficiality. We didn't go to the salon. We drove downtown to a glass and steel building that looked nothing like the warm, cozy architecture of our neighborhood. Daniel Rowe's office was cold, modern, and smelled of espresso and expensive cologne. Rowe himself was a man in his 40s, sharp-featured, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He didn't offer us tea. He offered us strategy. "Ms. Jacobs," he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm, dry, and professional. "Your grandmother has told me everything. I have reviewed the files." He opened a folder on his desk. "The case for financial abuse is strong. The power of attorney issue is particularly egregious. If we file charges, she is looking at felony fraud. But Eleanor tells me you want to handle this domestically first." "I want her out of the house," I said. "And I want my name off that loan. I don't care if she goes to jail, but I want her gone." "The public exposure strategy," Rowe nodded. "High risk, high reward. It relies on the element of shock to force a concession. If she realizes she is beaten publicly, she is less likely to fight the trust in court later." He looked at me seriously. "You need to be prepared for her reaction. Narcissists do not de-escalate when cornered. They attack. When I read that will tomorrow night, she is going to lose control. She will likely turn on you physically." I touched my cheek, imagining the sting. "I can handle it." "If she touches you," Rowe said, pointing a finger at me, "if she lays one finger on you, that is assault. I will have the local police non-emergency line on speed dial. But more importantly, if she strikes you in front of witnesses after being accused of theft, she validates our claim of abuse. In a weird way, her violence is your best asset." "So I just let her hit me?" "You stand your ground," Rowe said. "You present the evidence. You let me do the talking. And when the moment comes, you hand me that briefcase. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. Rowe slid a stack of papers across the desk. "These are the acceptance documents for the trusteeship. By signing this, you are legally accepting the fiduciary duty to protect Eleanor's assets. Once ink hits this paper, you are not just a granddaughter anymore. You are the legal guardian of the estate. If Lydia steals a spoon after you sign this, she is stealing from you." I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. I thought about the perfect Christmas Lydia was planning. I thought about the wreath on the door and the turkey in the oven. I was about to turn that holiday into a crime scene. I signed. My signature was bold and steady. "Done," I said. "Excellent," Rowe said, checking his watch. "I will arrive at the residence at 7 o'clock sharp tomorrow. I suggest you have the briefcase close at hand. Do not leave it unattended. Lydia has a nose for danger." "I will keep it with me," I promised. We drove home in silence. As we pulled into the driveway, the house was ablaze with Christmas lights. It looked magical. It looked welcoming. It was a lie constructed of electricity and pine. Lydia met us at the door, beaming. "Did you get your hair done?" "Oh, you look... well, it is a bit plain, Angela, but it will do. Come in, come in. The caterers are dropping off the linens." She ushered us inside, swirling around in a cloud of excitement. She had no idea that the two women walking past her were not her mother-in-law and stepdaughter. We were the plaintiff and the witness, walking onto the stand. I carried the briefcase upstairs and slid it behind the velvet armchair in the living room, hiding it beneath the drape of a throw blanket. It sat there like a landmine, waiting for someone to step on the wrong trigger. "Tomorrow," Grandma whispered to me as we parted ways at the top of the stairs. "Rest well, Angela. Tomorrow we go to war." I went to my room, but I didn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to the wind rattle the windows, visualizing the moment I would pull that briefcase out. I was terrified, but for the first time in my life, the terror wasn't paralyzing. It was fuel. The modern battlefield does not smell like gunpowder. It smells like cinnamon potpourri and looks like the glow of a smartphone screen in a dark room. The 23rd of December was not a day of peace. It was the day Lydia launched her airstrike. I woke up to my phone vibrating against the nightstand. It was a relentless, buzzing drill that drilled straight into my anxiety. I rolled over, shielding my eyes from the winter sun slicing through the blinds, and picked it up. There were 42 notifications. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. I wasn't popular. I didn't get 42 notifications on my birthday, let alone a random Tuesday morning. Most of them were from Facebook, an app I barely used anymore but had kept active to stay in touch with distant college friends. I opened the app. The first thing I saw was a photo of the Christmas tree downstairs. It was a beautiful photo, perfectly lit, showcasing the hand-blown glass ornaments and the expensive silk ribbons I had spent 3 days arranging. But it was the caption that made my blood run cold. Lydia Jacobs is feeling heartbroken. Sometimes, you pour your whole soul into creating magic for your family, only to have it thrown back in your face. It is so hard to keep smiling when you are being treated with such disrespect in your own home. But I will keep the lights on for Mother Jacobs. A mother's love is unconditional, even when the child makes it impossible to love them. Sacrifice, Christmas, Spirit pray for patience. Below the caption, the comments were already rolling in like a tide of toxic positivity. Aunt Marge. Oh, honey, I am so sorry. We all know how hard you work. Don't let her ruin it for you. Cousin Rachel. Sending prayers. Lydia. Some people just don't know how good they have it. Ignore the negativity. Mrs. McGable, from church. You are a saint. Lydia, keep your head up. The ungrateful ones always realize it too late. I sat up in bed, my hands shaking. She hadn't named me. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who the child was. She was painting a masterpiece of victimhood, and I was the invisible villain lurking in the background. I scrolled down. She had posted another one an hour later. This one was a selfie of her looking tired but brave, holding a cup of tea. Cleaning up the mess alone. Again, it is amazing how some people think coming home means being served, missing the days when family meant pitching in. But I won't complain. I do it for Martin. He deserves a happy wife. I felt a surge of bile in my throat. I had scrubbed the floors. I had hung the lights. I had cooked the meals. She had done nothing but stage photos and drink wine. A message popped up at the top of my screen. It was from Jessica, my best friend back in Cleveland. She and I had survived nursing school together, and she was the only person outside of Grandma Eleanor who knew the full story. Jessica. Ange, what is happening? I just saw Lydia's feed. She is absolutely dragging you. Aunt Marge just commented that you need professional help. Do you want me to say something? I am ready to go into the comments section and burn it down. Attached was a screenshot of a comment from my uncle. It is a shame Angela turned out this way after all the money you spent on her education. Stay strong, Lydia. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every fiber of my being wanted to unleash the truth. I wanted to post the photos of the credit card statements. I wanted to post the video of Lydia bullying my father. I wanted to scream. She is stealing $150,000. She is a fraud. But then I remembered Daniel Rowe's voice in the lawyer's office. Let her talk. The more she lies now, the harder she falls later. If you engage, you look like you are fighting. If you stay silent, you look like a victim. I took a deep breath and typed back to Jessica. Me. Don't say anything. Please. Trust me. Just screenshot everything she posts and send it to me. I am building a file. Jessica. It is brutal to watch. Ange, she has everyone convinced you are having a breakdown. Me. I know. Let them believe it for 24 more hours. I put the phone down. It felt radioactive. I went downstairs. The house was aggressively festive. Christmas carols were playing on the surround sound system. Silent Night, sung by a choir of children. It felt like a horror movie soundtrack. Lydia was in the kitchen, aggressively kneading dough. When I walked in, she didn't look at me. She sighed, a loud, tragic sound, and wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, ensuring I saw how exhausted she was. Good morning, I said. My voice was flat. Is it? She snapped, slamming the dough onto the marble counter. I have been up since 5 o'clock. Not that you would know. You were sleeping. I was up late working on the guest list, I said. The guest list is a disaster, she said. I had to redo the whole thing. You left out the Petersons. The Petersons moved to Florida 3 years ago, Lydia. It is the gesture, Angela. It is about respect. She turned to me, her eyes flashing. But I don't expect you to understand that. You have made it very clear that you think this whole holiday is a burden. She waited. She was baiting me. She wanted me to scream at her so she could post about it later. Update. She just yelled at me in the kitchen. I'm shaking. I poured myself a cup of coffee. My hand was steady. I am sorry you feel that way, I said. Lydia blinked. She looked disappointed. Is that all you have to say? After everything I posted? After everything I have done? She had almost slipped. She almost admitted she wanted a reaction to the posts. I am just trying to get through the holiday. Lydia, I said. Excuse me. I walked out. I didn't go to the living room. I went to the small sunroom at the back of the house, the only place with a lock on the door. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Cousin Rachel. We used to be close when we were kids. We used to build forts in the backyard. Rachel. Hey, Ange. Just saw Lydia's post. Look, I know things are tense, but can't you just suck it up for Grandma's sake? Lydia is really stressed. You don't need to be so difficult. It makes the rest of us uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. That was the word. They weren't worried about justice. They were worried about their own comfort. They wanted a pleasant Christmas dinner, and if that meant I had to be the punching bag for a narcissist, they were perfectly fine with that arrangement. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot. I added it to the folder on my phone named The Evidence. At 2:00 in the afternoon, my father called me. He was in the house. He was literally in his study down the hall, but he called me on the phone because he was too cowardly to face me, or too afraid Lydia would hear us talking. Angela, he whispered, are you there? I am in the sunroom. Dad, you can just walk over here. I can't, he said. She is on a rampage. Listen, honey, I need you to do me a favor. What favor? Just tonight at dinner, and tomorrow. Please don't bring up the loan. Don't bring up the money. Don't talk about lawyers. Dad, I said, leaning my head against the cold window pane. She forged my signature. She is stealing the house. It is not stealing, he hissed. I told you it is a strategy, and if you bring it up, you are going to destroy the family. Do you want that on your conscience? Do you want Grandma's last Christmas to be a war zone? It is already a war zone. Dad, you just surrendered before the first shot was fired. Don't get smart with me, he said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. I am your father. I am telling you to drop it. For your own good. She is thinking about asking you to leave if you can't get along. I am trying to protect you. Protect me? I laughed, a harsh, dry sound. Like you protected me when she used my credit to buy her car? Like you protected me when she told everyone I was crazy? We are a family, Angela. Families forgive. Families don't commit felony fraud against each other. Dad, internal family affairs do not cover forgery. You are being impossible, he said. Just stay in your room tonight. I will bring you a plate. Just stay out of her way. He hung up. I stared at the phone. He wasn't protecting me. He was quarantining me. He wanted to hide the evidence of his own failure in a bedroom so he could eat his roast beef in peace. I needed to see Grandma. I needed to know she was still with me. I unlocked the sunroom door and walked toward the stairs. Lydia appeared instantly, like she had been standing guard. Where are you going? She asked. To see Grandma. She is sleeping, Lydia said, blocking the staircase. She crossed her arms. She had a bad afternoon. Her heart was racing. I gave her a sedative. She needs absolute quiet. I just want to sit with her. No, Lydia said. You will wake her up. And honestly, Angela, your energy right now is toxic. I don't want you upsetting her. Go do something useful. The napkins need folding. She was cutting off my supply lines. She was isolating the commander. I nodded and turned away, but I didn't go to the napkins. I went to the downstairs bathroom, turned on the tap to mask the noise, and waited. 10 minutes later, I heard Lydia go into the kitchen. I slipped out, bypassed the creaky floorboard on the third step, a trick I learned when I was 12, and ghosted up the stairs. Grandma's door was cracked open. She wasn't sleeping. She was sitting up in bed, reading a book with a magnifying glass. I slipped inside and closed the door silently. She looked up. Her eyes were bright. "She told you I was asleep," she stated. "She said she sedated you." "She gave me a chamomile tea and a Tylenol," Grandma scoffed. "She thinks I am feeble." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a printout, a photograph. "The camera in the study," she whispered. "From this morning. Look." I took the photo. It was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. It showed Lydia standing at my father's desk. She wasn't organizing papers. She was holding a stamp, a notary stamp, and she was stamping a document that my father wasn't even in the room to sign. "She is notarizing her own forgeries," Grandma said. "She stole the stamp from your grandfather's old kit. She thinks because the stamp is expired, no one will notice, but the bank will notice if we point it out." "This is it," I said, my hands shaking. "This proves she is acting without Dad's consent on the details." "Keep it," Grandma said. "Put it in the briefcase. Now go. If she catches you here, she will lock the door." I kissed her forehead. Her skin was dry and cool like paper. "One more day," I whispered. "One more day," she replied. I spent the evening of the 24th in the small guest parlor. I didn't eat dinner with them. I could hear the clinking of silverware in the dining room. I could hear Lydia's laugh, that high, tinkling sound that sounded like breaking glass. I checked Facebook one last time. Lydia had posted a new photo. It was the dinner table, 3 place settings. Mine was conspicuously absent. Caption: "Small dinner tonight, just the people who truly care about tradition. Sometimes you have to prune the branches to save the tree. Merry Christmas Eve to all my supportive friends." There were 150 likes. I turned off my phone. I sat in the dark, watching the snow fall outside the window. The reflection of the streetlights on the white lawn made the world look frozen, suspended in time. I could hear Lydia in the kitchen now. She was on the phone again. Her voice carried through the heating vents. "Oh, it is going to be magnificent, Brenda," she was saying. "Yes, the whole family is coming tomorrow. And listen, I have a surprise. I think, well, I can't say for sure, but I think Mother Jacobs is finally going to sign the deed over during the toast. Yes, I know. It is about time." She laughed. "I told Martin, this is the last Christmas we have to worry. Next year, we will remodel. We will get rid of that awful antique furniture. We will finally make this place ours. It is the last Christmas where everything stays the same." I listened to her plan the demolition of my history. I listened to her gloat about a victory she thought she had already won. I looked at the briefcase sitting in the corner. She was right about one thing. This was the last Christmas where everything stayed the same. Tomorrow, the polite, quiet Angela Jacobs was going to die. The daughter who apologized for taking up space was going to vanish. I wasn't afraid anymore. The Facebook comments, the nasty texts, the isolation, it all felt distant, like noise from a radio in another room. They could call me a traitor. They could call me ungrateful. They could call me a villain. I didn't care what they called me, as long as they called me the owner of the house. I stood up and walked to the window. I saw my reflection in the glass. I looked tired. I looked pale. But my eyes were steady. "Merry Christmas, Lydia," I whispered to the empty room. "Enjoy your last night in charge." I went to bed, and for the first time in a month, I slept without dreaming. I needed the rest. Tomorrow, I had a performance to give. The sun set at 4:30 in the afternoon on Christmas Day, plunging the world outside into a deep, bruising blue inside the Jacobs family estate. However, there was no darkness. There was only an aggressive, blinding illumination. Lydia had strung thousands of white fairy lights along the banisters, the mantelpieces, and the door frames. The 12-foot spruce tree in the corner of the living room blazed with so much electricity that I could practically hear the meter spinning outside, tallying up a bill my father would struggle to pay in January. The house smelled of roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and the expensive, cloying scent of cinnamon-infused pine cones that Lydia had placed in crystal bowls in every room. To an outsider, it was a masterpiece. It was the platonic ideal of an upper-middle-class American Christmas. To me, it felt like a film set where the director was holding a gun to the cast members' heads. I stood near the entrance to the dining room, wearing the simple gray dress I had ironed 3 times that morning. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The doorbell began to ring at 5 o'clock. "Showtime," Lydia chirped from the kitchen. She swept into the hallway, wearing a blood-red velvet dress that hugged her frame, her hair piled high in a complex, hair-sprayed sculpture. She looked beautiful. She also looked like she was ready to drink blood. Aunt Marge and Uncle Bob were the first to arrive, shaking snow off their coats. Lydia greeted them with a performance worthy of a Tony Award. She threw her arms wide, pulling Marge into a hug that lasted 3 seconds too long. "Marge, you made it! Oh, look at you. Freezing cold. Come in by the fire. Martin has the mulled wine ready." Then, she turned to me. The warmth in her eyes didn't vanish, but it hardened into something glassy and synthetic. She reached out and draped an arm around my shoulders, squeezing my bicep hard enough to leave a mark. "And look who is here," Lydia cooed, pulling me into her side. "Our wandering girl. Angela has been helping me all day. She is a bit tired, poor thing, but she is trying her best. Aren't you, sweetie?" I stiffened under her grip. "Hello, Aunt Marge," I said. Marge looked at me. Her gaze wasn't warm. It was searching. She looked at my eyes, my hands, scanning for the instability Lydia had been posting about on Facebook all week. "Hello, Angela," Marge said, her voice dropping an octave. "It is good to see you. We were so worried when Lydia told us how much you were struggling." "I am fine, Aunt Marge," I said. "Of course she is fine," Lydia laughed, a high, brittle sound. "She is home now. She has me. Even if she is a little stubborn about taking advice, she is still my girl. She is my world, really. I don't know what I would do without her drama to keep me young." She laughed again. Marge laughed with her. I stood there, trapped in the side hug, feeling the heat of Lydia's body and the coldness of her intent. She was inoculating them against me. She was framing my silence as sullenness and my presence as a burden she was graciously carrying. By 6 o'clock, the house was full. 25 people crammed into the living room and dining area. Cousins I hadn't seen in 2 years held glasses of eggnog and whispered in corners. Every time I walked past a group, the conversation would die out instantly, replaced by overly bright smiles and questions about the weather. "Did you hear?" I imagined them saying, "Lydia says she had a breakdown. Lydia says she is broke. Lydia says she threatened Martin." I found my father standing by the bar cart, pouring himself a scotch. His hand was shaking. He looked at me, then looked away, staring intently at the amber liquid. "Dad," I said softly. "Just get through dinner, Angela," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. "Just eat the food and smile, please." He drank the scotch in one swallow. He wasn't my father tonight. He was just another prop in Lydia's play. We moved to the dining table at 6:30. It was a long mahogany table covered in a white lace tablecloth, the one Grandma Eleanor had brought from Belgium 50 years ago. The china was bone white with gold rims. The centerpiece was a sprawling arrangement of holly and red berries that blocked the view of the person sitting opposite you. Grandma Eleanor sat at the head of the table. She wore a dark blue silk blouse and her favorite pearl earrings. She looked small in the high-backed chair, her skin translucent under the chandelier light. Her hands rested on the table, trembling slightly from her Parkinson's, but her spine was steel straight. As I took my seat to her right, a placement Lydia had insisted on so she could keep an eye on me, Grandma turned her head slightly. She didn't smile. She just gave a single, imperceptible nod. "Hold the line," that nod said. Lydia sat at the opposite end, tapping her crystal wine glass with a silver spoon. The sharp ting-ting-ting silenced the room. "Everyone," Lydia announced. Standing up, she held her wine glass aloft. "Before we eat this beautiful meal, which, I must admit, nearly killed me to prepare, I just want to say how grateful I am to have this family together, to have Mother Jacobs here with us for another precious year." She wiped a tear from her eye. A murmur of sympathy went around the table. "And," she continued, her eyes sliding toward me like a predator locating prey, "I am especially grateful that Angela could join us. I know it hasn't been an easy year for her. When she called me from Chicago, crying, saying she couldn't make rent and didn't know where to turn, I told Martin, it doesn't matter what it costs. Bring her home." I gripped my fork. My knuckles turned white. That never happened. I had never called her crying. I had quit my job with $20,000 in savings. "Lydia," I said. My voice was low. She ignored me. She was rolling now. "And even though it has been a challenge, you all know how hard it is to blend households, especially when one person is used to a freer lifestyle. We have managed. I have paid the debts. I have smoothed over the mistakes, because that is what mothers do, even stepmothers." "That is not true," I said. I spoke louder this time. The table went quiet. Aunt Sarah, sitting across from me, frowned. "Angela, let her finish." "I never asked you for money, Lydia," I said, looking straight at her. "I came home because I was tired, not because I was broke." Lydia smiled, a sad, pitying smile that made my skin crawl. "Oh, honey, see? This is the pride I was talking about. It is okay to need help. Angela, we are all family here. You don't have to pretend with us. We all know about the credit cards." "The credit cards you opened?" I asked. Lydia let out a gasp. She pressed a hand to her chest. "Oh my God, Martin, do you hear this? Now she is accusing me? After I spent my own inheritance paying off her student loans?" "You didn't pay my loans." I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floorboards. "I paid my own loans. I worked double shifts for 6 years. "Sit down, Angela," my father hissed from his seat. "You are making a scene." "She is lying, Dad." "She is protecting you," Lydia shouted, slamming her hand on the table. The silverware rattled. "I am trying to give you a dignity you do not deserve. I tell everyone you are struggling because the truth, that you are just ungrateful and lazy, is too embarrassing to share." The room was deadly silent. The air was thick with tension, heavy and suffocating. The relatives were staring at me with open hostility now. To them, I was the unstable daughter attacking the woman who had just cooked them a turkey. "I think," Cousin Rachel said coldly, "that Angela should leave the table if she can't be civil." "No." Grandma Eleanor's voice cut through the noise. It was weak, but distinct. "Angela stays." Lydia turned to Grandma. "Mother, please, you are confused. You don't see how she treats me when you are napping. She is abusive. She is bullying me in my own house." "It is my house," Grandma said. Lydia's eyes narrowed. She took a deep breath. Recalibrating, she poured herself more wine, her hand shaking slightly. "Fine, fine. It is your house, Mother, for now. But let's be real. Who takes care of it? Who fixes the roof? Who pays the taxes? Me and Martin. Angela just lives here. She just takes—" She looked at me, her eyes wet with rage. "You know, I was going to give you a very nice check tonight, Angela, to help you start over. But seeing this attitude, seeing how you disrupt this family, I don't think you can be trusted with money." "I don't want your money," I said, sitting back down slowly. "I just want you to stop talking about finances at Christmas dinner." "Oh, you want me to stop?" Lydia laughed. "You want to control the conversation? Just like you tried to control the decorations? Just like you tried to control your father? You are a cancer in this house, Angela. You come back here and you rot everything you touch." She picked up a heavy serving bowl of cranberry sauce. She was gesturing wildly with it. "I made this dinner perfect," she screamed. "Perfect. And you sit there with that sour face, judging me, plotting against me.
Lydia, put the bowl down, Martin said weakly.
No, I want her to understand. Lydia swung her arm. It might have been an accident, or it might have been a subconscious desire to destroy something. The heavy ceramic bowl slipped from her wine-slicked fingers. It hit the table with a sickening crunch. The bowl shattered. Dark red cranberry sauce exploded outward like a gunshot wound. It flew across the table, splattering the pristine white lace tablecloth, the crystal glasses, and the front of my gray dress. A shard of ceramic skidded across the table and stopped inches from Grandma's hand. The silence that followed was absolute. I looked down at my dress. A thick red stain was spreading across my chest. I looked at the tablecloth. Grandma's Belgian lace, now ruined, soaked in crimson. Lydia stared at the mess, her face twisted. She didn't apologize. She didn't gasp. She looked at me, and her eyes went black with hatred. "Look what you made me do," she shrieked. "You made me drop it. You ruined everything. You ruined Christmas." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are evil. You are a curse on this family. Look at this mess. Look at your grandmother's tablecloth. You did this." I stood up. I was calm now. The adrenaline had peaked and leveled off into a cold, hard clarity. I picked up a napkin and wiped a splatter of sauce from my arm. "It was your hand that dropped it. Lydia," I said. My voice was steady, cutting through her hysteria. "Don't you dare blame me," she screamed, stepping toward me. "You stressed me out. You pushed me. You are worthless. You are a leech." "I am done being your scapegoat," I said. I looked her dead in the eye. "And I am done paying for your mistakes." "My mistakes?" She laughed, a manic sound. "I am the only thing holding this family together." "You are stealing from this family," I said. The words hung in the air. "What did you say?" Lydia whispered. "I said you are stealing," I repeated, enunciating every syllable. I pointed to the red stain on the table. "This mess? This cranberry sauce? This can be washed out. We can bleach the lace. But the things you did with my signature, the loans you took out in my name, the papers you forged in the study, those don't wash out. Lydia." Lydia froze. Her face went from red to a terrifying shade of gray. She looked at Martin, then back at me. She knew. In that second, she knew that I knew. "You shut your mouth," she hissed. $150,000, I said. "First Horizon Trust. Does that ring a bell?" Lydia moved. It happened fast, but also in slow motion. She lunged across the space between us. Her arm pulled back. Her face was a mask of pure, animalistic fury. "Shut up," she screamed. Her open palm connected with the side of my face. Crack. The sound was louder than the breaking bowl. It was a sharp, clapping thunder that echoed off the high ceilings. My head snapped to the side. My cheek burned instantly, a hot, throbbing pain that radiated into my jaw. I stumbled back, catching myself on the edge of the buffet table. The room gasped as one entity. Uncle Bob dropped his fork. Cousin Rachel covered her mouth with both hands. Martin stood up, his chair falling over backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Lydia stood there, her chest heaving, her hands still raised. She stared at me, her eyes wide. She looked like she had just woken up from a trance. I slowly turned my head back to face her. My cheek was throbbing, pulsing with heat. I could feel the mark forming already. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't hit her back. I looked at her, and then I looked at the grandfather clock in the corner. Tick-tock. It was exactly 7 o'clock. The doorbell rang. It was a crisp, demanding ring. 2 short bursts. Lydia flinched. She looked at the door, then at me. Fear, cold and absolute, began to flood her eyes. "Who is that?" she whispered. I reached behind the velvet chair next to me. My fingers closed around the cold leather handle of the black briefcase I had hidden there yesterday. I pulled it out. The heavy thud of the case hitting the floor was the only sound in the room. "That," I said, touching my burning cheek, is the end of your performance. Open the door. Martin, Grandma Eleanor said. Her voice was no longer weak. It was the voice of the executioner. Mr. Rowe is here on time. The silence that followed the slap was not empty. It was heavy, vibrating with the kinetic energy of violence. My cheek did not just sting. It throbbed with a dull, rhythmic heat that seemed to synchronize with the beating of my heart. I could feel the blood rushing to the surface of my skin, outlining the shape of Lydia's fingers in red. Then, the silence shattered. You ruined Christmas. Lydia screamed the words, her voice tearing through the festive atmosphere like a serrated knife. She did not look like an aggressor. In an instant, she had contorted her face into a mask of pure, unadulterated anguish. She clutched her own hand, the hand that had just struck me, to her chest as if she were the one who had been injured. Look at what you made me do, she wailed, turning to the shocked audience of relatives. You pushed me. You pushed me until I broke. I have done everything for you, Angela. I have slaved in this kitchen for 2 days. I have sacrificed my dignity, my money, my time, just to give you a home. And you stand there and accuse me of stealing? You stand there and spit on your grandmother's table? She gestured wildly to the red cranberry stain on the lace tablecloth, skillfully directing everyone's attention to the mess rather than the assault. You are sick, Lydia shrieked, tears now streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. You are a sick, jealous girl who cannot stand to see anyone else happy. You wanted to destroy this night. Well, congratulations. Angela, you won. You ruined Christmas for everyone. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? The reaction from the room was immediate and disheartening, though entirely predictable. Aunt Marge was the first to move. She didn't rush to me, the person with the welcoming welt on her face. She rushed to Lydia. She wrapped her arms around my stepmother, cooing softly. Shh, Lydia. It is okay, Marge said, glaring at me over Lydia's heaving shoulder. We saw it. We saw how she provoked you. You can only poke a bear so many times. She is clearly not well, Cousin Rachel whispered loud enough for the whole table to hear. She was shaking her head, looking at me with a mixture of fear and disgust. Lydia was right. The city broke her. Look at her eyes. She is completely detached. My father, Martin, was the most pathetic figure of all. He stood between us, his hands raised in a futile, trembling surrender. He looked at Lydia, then at me, then at the door, clearly wishing he could vanish. Lydia, honey, please, he stammered. Let's take a breath. Angela, go to your room. Just go upstairs. We will clean this up. Don't make it worse. I am not going to my room, I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through the hysteria. I didn't sound like the Angela they knew, the people-pleaser, the peacekeeper. I sounded like someone else entirely. I stood perfectly still, my hands at my sides. I didn't touch my cheek. I didn't wipe the cranberry sauce from my dress. I let the evidence sit there, stark and undeniable. You see? Lydia sobbed into Marge's shoulder. She defies us. She has no respect. Uncle Bob stood up, looking imposing. Now listen here, young lady, he started, using his booming, head-of-the-family voice. You have upset your mother. You have upset your grandmother. I think it is time you showed some respect and did as your father asked. She is not my mother, I said to Uncle Bob, keeping my eyes locked on Lydia. And I am showing the exact amount of respect this situation deserves. Lydia lifted her head, her eyes flashing with a renewed, venomous energy. Get out, she hissed. Get out of this house right now. I don't care where you go. Sleep in the snow for all I care. But you are done here. You are cut off. Is that a financial threat, Lydia? I asked. Or a territorial one? It is a promise, she screamed. You are nothing in this house. You are a guest who overstayed her welcome. You have nothing, no money, no power. No one believes you. I looked around the room. She was right. The faces staring back at me were closed off, hardened by 10 years of Lydia's narrative. They saw a hysterical stepmother pushed to the brink by a maladjusted stepdaughter. They didn't see the truth,
But they were about to hear it.
I took a breath. The air smelled of roasting turkey and expensive perfume. But underneath, I could smell the metallic tang of adrenaline. "If you want to know who really ruined Christmas," I said, my voice projecting clearly to the back of the room, "and if you want to know why I am not leaving this house tonight, or ever again, then perhaps we should let Grandma's lawyer explain it."
The room went quiet again. The word lawyer hung in the air like smoke.
Lydia froze. "What?" And then, the doorbell rang again. It was a sharp, persistent sound. 2 brisk rings. It was the sound of reality intruding on their delusion.
"Nancy," Grandma Eleanor said.
Everyone turned to the head of the table. My grandmother had not moved since the bowl shattered. She sat with her hands clasped over her cane, her back straight, her eyes bright and hard. She spoke to the maid who was hovering nervously by the kitchen door. "Open the front door, Nancy," Grandma ordered. "Our guest is waiting." "Mother, no," Lydia said, pulling away from Aunt Marge. Panic flickered across her face for the first time. "We are not having guests. Look at this mess. We are having a family crisis. Tell them to go away." "Open the door," Grandma repeated. Her voice was not loud, but it had the weight of iron. Nancy hurried to the foyer. We heard the heavy oak door creak open. We heard the rush of cold wind and the stomp of boots on the entryway slate. And then, footsteps. Sharp, confident, heavy footsteps. Daniel Rowe walked into the dining room. He looked like a shark swimming into a tank of goldfish. He was wearing a long charcoal wool coat over a sharp navy suit. He carried a leather briefcase that looked expensive enough to pay off my father's car. Snowflakes were melting on his shoulders. He didn't look at the Christmas tree. He didn't look at the food. He looked at the room with the detached, analytical gaze of a man who had seen every variety of human greed and stupidity and was impressed by none of it. "Good evening," he said. His voice was a baritone rumble that demanded attention without asking for it. Lydia stepped forward. She wiped her face, her hostess instinct warring with her terror. "Excuse me? Who are you? This is a private party. You cannot just walk in here." "I was invited," Daniel Rowe said. He walked past her as if she were a piece of furniture and went straight to Grandma Eleanor. He nodded to her respectfully. "Mrs. Jacobs, Merry Christmas." "Mr. Rowe," Grandma said, inclining her head. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. I apologize for the atmosphere. We had a small accident." Rowe glanced at the shattered bowl, the red stain on the tablecloth, and finally, the bright red mark on my cheek. His eyes lingered on my face for a fraction of a second, a professional assessment of damages, before he turned back to the room. "I am Daniel Rowe," he announced, turning to face the stunned relatives. "I am Mrs. Eleanor Jacobs' attorney." "Attorney?" Uncle Bob sputtered. "Eleanor has used Henderson for 30 years. Who is this guy?" "Mr. Henderson retired," Rowe said smoothly. "I have been handling Mrs. Jacobs's estate planning for the last 2 months." Lydia let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "Estate planning? On Christmas night? This is ridiculous. Look, Mr. Rowe, or whoever you are, you can see we are in the middle of a family dispute. My stepdaughter is having an episode. My mother-in-law is confused. This is not the time for business. Please leave." She reached out to touch his arm, to guide him away, her standard move to assert control. Rowe stepped back. He didn't flinch, but the movement was so sharp that Lydia recoiled. "I am not here for a social call, Mrs. Jacobs," Rowe said, "and I am certainly not leaving. I am here to execute a specific instruction from my client regarding the immediate disclosure of her last will and testament." "The will?" Martin spoke up, his voice trembling. "Mom, what is going on? We usually do this, casually. We don't need a stranger here." "The casual days are over. Martin," Grandma Eleanor said, "you all seem to have forgotten whose table you are sitting at." Lydia's eyes darted around the room. She was calculating. She saw the lawyer. She saw the briefcase. But her arrogance, fed by years of getting away with everything, kicked in. She assumed the will was still the one she had manipulated my father into expecting, the one where the house went to Martin, and by extension, to her. She straightened her spine. She smoothed her velvet dress. She forced a smile onto her face, though it looked more like a grimace. "Well," Lydia said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "if Mother Jacobs insists, I suppose we have nothing to hide. It is just unorthodox. But if you want to read the will, go ahead. Maybe it will help clarify things for Angela. Maybe she needs to hear in black and white exactly where she stands in this family." She shot me a look of pure triumph. She thought I was being written out. She thought this was my punishment. "I think that is a wide idea," Ro said. He walked to the end of the table, near where I was standing. He placed his briefcase on a side chair. He didn't sit down. He stood, looming over the holiday feast like a judgment. "Mrs. Jacobs," Ro said to Grandma, "shall we proceed with the standard reading, or would you like me to skip to the new amendments regarding the trust?" "Read the preamble first," Grandma said. "I want them to hear the date." "Very well." Ro opened a blue folder. "This last will and testament supersedes all previous documents. It was drafted and notarized on December 23rd of this year." Lydia's smile faltered. "December 23rd? That was 2 days ago." "Correct," Ro said. "It is a fresh document, created to reflect recent revelations regarding the estate's assets." The room was so quiet you could hear the snow hitting the window pane. The relatives had stopped eating. Aunt Sarah was holding a wineglass that was slowly tilting to the side. "However," Ro continued, looking up from the paper, "before we get to the distribution of assets, Mrs. Jacobs has included a preamble regarding the conditions of inheritance. This is known as the Transparency Clause." He looked at Lydia. "The clause states that any beneficiary who wishes to inherit from the estate must willingly submit to a financial audit of their dealings with the Jacobs family accounts over the last 5 years. Refusal to submit, or evidence of malfeasance, results in immediate disinheritance." Lydia went pale. "What? That is insulting. Martin, tell him that is insulting. We have taken care of her for years." "If you have taken care of her," I said, speaking from my spot by the wall, "then an audit shouldn't be a problem, should it, Lydia?" Lydia whipped her head around to glare at me. "You stay out of this. This is between the adults." "Actually," Ro interrupted, his voice cutting like a razor, "Angela is integral to this process. The will names a new executor for the estate." He paused for effect. "The sole executor and trustee of the Jacobs estate is Angela Jacobs." The gasp that went around the room was audible. Lydia looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "That is impossible," she whispered. She is incompetent. She is broke. She is unstable." "On the contrary," Ro said calmly, "Angela Jacobs has demonstrated remarkable diligence, which brings us to tonight's main event." He turned to Grandma Eleanor. "Ma'am, the floor is yours." Grandma nodded. She looked at the relatives. "I wanted you all to be here," she said, her voice gathering strength. "I wanted you to see this. For years. Lydia has told you stories. She has told you Angela is a failure. She has told you Angela is a thief. She has told you that I am senile." "Mother, I never said," Lydia started. "Be quiet," Grandma snapped. It was a command, not a request. "Tonight, we are going to look at the truth, not the stories, the math." She looked at me. "Angela, the briefcase." I stepped forward. My legs felt heavy, but my hands were steady. I reached down and picked up the black leather briefcase I had hidden. I placed it on the dining table, right next to the shattered remains of the cranberry bowl. The juxtaposition was striking. The chaos of the spilled food and the stark black leather of the legal case. I clicked the latches open. The sound was loud in the silence. Click, click. "You said I ruined Christmas," I said to Lydia, lifting the lid. "You said I embarrassed the family, You said I was the one causing the drama. I pulled out the first stack of papers, the credit card statements with the mismatched signatures. I held them up. Let's see what the bank thinks about that. Lydia stared at the papers. Her face was no longer pale, it was gray. She looked at the door, measuring the distance to freedom, but Daniel Rowe moved slightly, blocking her path. Please sit down, Mrs. Jacobs, Rowe said. This is now a formal deposition of evidence regarding felony fraud. If you leave, we call the police immediately. Lydia sank into her chair. The fight didn't leave her eyes, but the confidence did. She looked like a trapped rat. The Christmas lights twinkled merrily around us, casting multicolored shadows on the documents that were about to destroy her life. The party was over. The trial had begun. Daniel Rowe did not need a gavel to command the room. He simply adjusted his glasses, held the crisp white document up to the chandelier light, and began to read. His voice was a steady baritone that seemed to absorb the hysteria in the room and replace it with cold, hard law. I, Eleanor Marie Jacobs, being of sound mind and body, hereby revoke all prior wills and codicils. Rowe read, regarding the disposition of my real estate property located at 42 Oak Street, as well as my investment portfolio and liquid savings. I hereby direct that all such assets be immediately transferred into a revocable living trust. Lydia let out a small, strangled noise, like a balloon slowly leaking air. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. The name of this trust, Rowe continued, looking briefly at me, shall be the Angela Jacobs Freedom Trust. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the wax dripping from the candles. The sole trustee and primary beneficiary of this trust is Angela Jacobs, Rowe stated. She shall have full discretion over the management, sale, or retention of all assets. This is a joke, Lydia whispered, her voice trembling. Mother, tell him to stop. You cannot give the house to her. She is a child. She doesn't know how to manage an estate. Read Article 4, subsection C, Grandma Eleanor said. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were fixed on Lydia like a hawk sighting a mouse. Rowe turned the page. The paper rustled loudly in the quiet room. Article 4, subsection C, the exclusion clause. Rowe read, it is my express wish that any individual who is found to have utilized the name, identity, or signature of any other family member for the purpose of unauthorized financial transaction, credit application, or loan procurement shall be permanently and irrevocably excluded from receiving any benefit from this estate. This exclusion applies regardless of biological or marital relation. The room did not just gasp, it inhaled collectively. Aunt Marge put her hand over her mouth. Uncle Bob looked from Lydia to me, his eyes wide with dawn of understanding. The vague rumors Lydia had spread about me were suddenly colliding with the very specific legal language Rowe was reading. That proves nothing, Lydia stammered, standing up. Her legs were shaking so bad she had to lean against the chair. Anyone could have written that. It is just words. You have no proof I did anything. Actually, Rowe said, closing the folder and reaching for a sleek black tablet sitting on his briefcase. We do. He tapped the screen. He didn't need a projector. He simply propped the tablet up against the centerpiece, turning the volume to the maximum. The video that played was grainy, shot from a high angle in the study, but the audio was crystal clear. It was dated 3 days ago. On the screen, Lydia was pacing back and forth in front of my father. We need to do it now. Martin, the digital Lydia hissed. The old lady is losing it. If we don't secure the equity line before she dies, the probate court will freeze everything. I need that $150,000 to cover the business loans before the end of the year. But Angela, my father's voice replied, sounding weak and tired. Using her credit, what if she finds out? The room watched in horror as the on-screen Lydia laughed. She won't find out. I have the power of attorney she signed when she was sick, and even if she does, who are they going to believe? Me, the pillar of the community, or the unstable daughter who can't hold down a job? I can forge her signature with my eyes closed. Martin, I have been practicing.
The video cut to black.
Lydia stood frozen. She looked like a statue made of ash. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Aunt Sarah, who had spent the entire evening glaring at me, slowly turned her head toward Lydia. "You forged her signature?" she whispered. "Lydia, is that true?" It is taken out of context," Lydia shrieked. Finding her voice, we were role-playing. It was a joke, a bad joke." "A joke?" Ro asked. He swiped the screen. "Let's watch the next clip. This is from yesterday morning. It shows you using an expired notary stamp to validate a loan application that your husband had not even signed yet." The video played. It showed Lydia alone in the study, stamping papers with a rhythmic, mechanical efficiency. Thump, thump, thump. "Oh my God," Cousin Rachel said, pushing her chair back from the table as if Lydia were contagious. "That is a crime. That is an actual crime." Lydia looked around the room, her eyes wild. She saw the faces of the people she had manipulated for years, the cousins she had charmed, the aunts she had lied to. They were looking at her with a mixture of horror and betrayal. The mask had not just slipped, it had been incinerated. "Mother Jacobs," Lydia cried, turning to Grandma Eleanor. "Please, stop this. They are twisting everything. I did it for us. I did it to save the house." Grandma Eleanor slowly lifted her head. She looked at the woman who had tormented her family for a decade. There was no pity in her eyes, only a profound, weary disappointment. "I gave you a chance, Lydia," Grandma said softly. "I welcomed you into this home. I gave you a chance to be a daughter-in-law. I gave you a chance to be a mother. I did not give you permission to be a predator." "I am not a predator," Lydia screamed, tears streaming down her face. "I am a victim. I have carried this family on my back." "You have eaten this family from the inside out," Grandma said. "You can hate Angela. You can resent me, but you are not permitted to steal the future of my granddaughter." "It was a misunderstanding," Martin suddenly shouted. He stepped forward, his face red and sweaty. He was desperate to salvage the unsalvageable. "Mr. Rowe, please, this is all a big misunderstanding. Lydia just got confused with the paperwork. We can fix this. We can pay back the loans. There is no need to involve the law." "Confused?" Rowe raised an eyebrow. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It bore the logo of First Horizon Trust. "This is a rejection letter I received via fax 2 hours ago," Rowe said. "It states that the loan application for $150,000 has been denied due to a flag for fraudulent activity triggered by the co-borrower, Angela Jacobs." He held the paper up for Martin to see. "The bank doesn't think it is a misunderstanding, Mr. Jacobs," Rowe said coldly. "The bank thinks it is felony fraud, and since your name is listed as a consenting spouse on the application, I would suggest you stop talking before you incriminate yourself further." Martin collapsed into his chair. He put his head in his hands. He knew it was over. Lydia, however, was not done. She looked at Martin, defeated. She looked at the relatives, disgusted, and then she looked at me. Her face twisted into something ugly and primal. "You," she hissed. "You did this. You planned this. You poisoned them against me." She grabbed a steak knife from the table. The room erupted in screams. Uncle Bob lunged forward. "Lydia, drop it!" Aunt Marge screamed. Lydia didn't attack. She just held the knife, pointing it at me, her hand shaking violently. "You little witch! You bought her off. You manipulated a senile old woman to steal my inheritance. I will kill you. I will burn this house down before I let you have it." "That is enough," Grandma Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip. She slammed her cane against the floor. "Put the knife down, Lydia," Grandma said. "Mr. Rowe has already informed the police that there might be a disturbance tonight. They are 2 minutes away. If you do not drop that knife, you will leave this house in handcuffs." Lydia froze. She looked at the knife in her hand. She looked at the terrified faces of her family. The reality of her situation crashed down on her. She wasn't the victim. She wasn't the hero. She was the woman holding a weapon at a Christmas dinner. With a sob of pure rage, she threw the knife. It clattered harmlessly against the wall, leaving a small nick in the wallpaper. "I hate you," she screamed at me. "I hate all of you." I watched the knife fall. I watched her crumble. And I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a profound sense of lightness. I reached for the briefcase I had placed on the table. I opened it fully. I took out the stacks of paper, the bank statements, the emails, the credit card applications, the transfer receipts. I laid them out on the tablecloth, covering the cranberry stain. I spread them out like a deck of cards. "You can hate me all you want, Lydia," I said. My voice was calm. It was the voice of the woman who had managed emergency rooms, who had saved lives, who had survived. But you can't argue with the math. I pointed to a stack of papers. "Here are the transfers I made to you for roof repairs that never happened. Here are the credit cards you opened in my name when I was in Chicago. Here are the emails where you told the bank I was mentally incompetent so you could bypass my consent." I looked up at the relatives. They were craning their necks to see. "This is what I have been silent about for 10 years, I said. "I stayed silent because I wanted a family. I stayed silent because I thought if I paid enough, if I worked hard enough, you would finally love me." I looked at my father. He was weeping silently into his hands. "But I realized something tonight," I said. "You can't buy love, and you certainly can't buy family. So, from now on, I am not paying anymore, and I am not staying silent anymore." Daniel Rowe stepped forward. He closed the briefcase for me. "The terms of the trust are effective immediately," Rowe announced. "Lydia Jacobs and Martin Jacobs are hereby removed from the property. You have 1 hour to pack your personal effects. The locks will be changed tomorrow morning." "You can't do that," Lydia wailed. "We have rights. We have squatters' rights." "You have no rights," Rowe said. "You have a choice. You can leave quietly, and Angela agrees not to press criminal charges for the fraud immediately, or you can stay, and I will hand this entire file to the district attorney tomorrow morning. Which would you prefer?" Lydia looked at me. She searched my face for any sign of weakness, any hint of the girl who used to beg for her approval. She found none. "I will sue you," she whispered. "I will tell everyone you are a liar." "If you speak my client's name in public again," Rowe said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl, "if you post one more lie on social media, if you send one more text message defaming her character, we will file a civil suit for defamation so large that you will be garnishing your wages for the next 3 lifetimes. Do we understand each other?" Lydia didn't answer. She turned and ran. We heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs, followed by the slamming of a door. Martin stood up slowly. He looked at me, his eyes red and swollen. "Angela," he said, "please, where will we go?" "I don't know, Dad," I said. "Maybe you should ask Lydia. She always has a plan, doesn't she?" He looked at Grandma Eleanor. She turned her face away. "Go help your wife pack, Martin," Grandma said. "Your dinner is getting cold." The next hour was a blur of activity. The relatives left in a hushed, awkward exodus, murmuring apologies to Grandma and avoiding my gaze. They didn't know what to say. They had witnessed a demolition, and they were just grateful not to be under the rubble. By 9 o'clock, the house was silent. Lydia and Martin were gone. They had left with 4 suitcases and a stream of obscenities. The front door had closed behind them with a finality that felt like the closing of a coffin lid. I walked out onto the front porch. The snow was falling softly, coating the world in a clean, white blanket. The Christmas lights were still twinkling, indifferent to the violence that had just occurred. I took a deep breath. The air was freezing, biting at my lungs, but it tasted sweet. It tasted like my own. I heard the screen door creak behind me. Grandma Eleanor stepped out. She was wrapped in a thick wool coat, leaning on her cane. She held something in her hand. "Here," she said. She draped a soft, red-knitted scarf around my neck. It was warm. "I made this for you," she said. "I started it last year, when you came home. I knew you would need it. I ruined the party, I said, looking out at the empty driveway.
You saved the house, Grandma corrected, and you saved yourself.
She reached out and patted my cheek, the one Lydia had slapped. The skin was still tender, but the shame was gone.
I have one more gift for you, Angela, Grandma said. You gave me the house, Grandma. That is enough.
No, she said. She looked me in the eye, and her face was soft with a love I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. The house is just wood and brick. The real gift is that you never have to wonder again. You never have to wonder if they love you. You know the truth, and the truth has set you free.
I am alone, I whispered.
You are free, she said firmly. Freedom often feels like being alone at first, but wait until the morning. It will feel like flying. She squeezed my hand. Merry Christmas, my brave girl.
Merry Christmas, Grandma, I said.
She went back inside, leaving me alone on the porch. I stood there for a long time, watching the snow cover the tire tracks of my father's car. I touched the scarf around my neck. I touched the cold railing of my house. I smiled. It wasn't a triumphant smile. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the small, quiet smile of a survivor who realizes the war is over and she is still standing. I turned around and walked back inside, closing the heavy oak door against the cold. The lock clicked into place. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment down below sharing your location and your thoughts on Angela's decision. And remember to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit the notification bell so this story can reach even more people who need to hear it.